We're going to be opening the planning board meeting for April 29th. First on the agenda, Fern Ridge Estates. Request for a lot release.
Yes. Good evening. My name's Lou Petrozzi with Wall Street Development Corp. Here tonight to request release of the 3 remaining lots in the subdivision. There's 4 copies. At this time, we are coordinating our scheduling with the DPW on the pavement of Winston Road, completion of Winston Road, the public way portion of Winston Road. And we're anticipating to schedule that work sometime before the end of May. And we've also posted bond with the town for $25,000 that's being held as security for that work to be done. I don't know if you folks have been down there recently, but before the winter, we've constructed the sidewalks and paved the sidewalks and didn't have enough time to put the top coat on the sidewalk, but we're incorporating that into our schedule for the month of May. And that's pretty much it. These are the last 3 lots in the subdivision. We'd like to proceed with these 3 lots, get most of the heavy work out of the way so it limits the truck traffic and so on and so forth. That's issue number 1. The second issue is related to the open space. I had submitted a deed that we had prepared last month, and I got this redlined version back from the from your town council. I guess I don't know why they didn't make the changes themselves, but just I want to clarify a couple of things. Is that and I haven't done enough homework on this, but we're conveying this property to the town, and they're adding in that it's going to be in accordance with a chapter 40, section 8C, which I don't have any idea what that is. But is this land going to be owned by the Conservation Commission, or how?
Or controlled by. Are you familiar with that section?
I mean, I was always under the impression that it would be the town that would hold it, the Board of Selectmen would hold it, not the Conservation Commission. And I still would like to see that happen, rather than have the Conservation Commission get their hands on it.
Well, a lot of what the Board of Selectmen accept as land ends up with the Conservation Commission anyway.
Well, I just don't want it stated in the deed, that's all. Whatever they decide to do with it is their own business, but I don't think I should be conveying it to the town, acting through the conservation. Have you folks seen this at all?
I don't remember seeing that.
No, we got something today from you, but it wasn't that, right?
No, that was a lot release.
They probably haven't seen it.
You haven't seen this, so.
No.
So this was one of the issues that we talked about at the last time I was here, about getting the open space
Yeah.
set up so that it can convey to the town. So this is the,
I bet she knows the answer to that
so
question.
this is the deed.
We'll give you a few
I'll
minutes.
bet she
to-
does.
We'll give you a couple minutes to get settled, but you may be able to help us with this question.
So those are my only 2 things related to the lot releases, the deed.
Mention that to Andrea, see if she's familiar with it.
Andrea, on the open space that we dedicate that we convey to the town, we're under the understanding that it's being conveyed to the town through the Board of Selectmen. And for some reason, town council, we prepared a deed, and the town council made some comments here regarding it being conveyed to the Conservation Commission.
Well, we're not sure.
Well,
It's a certain section that it's referencing,
Well, it
right?
says here, this is what it says it says, we grant to the town of Norfolk, acting and through its Conservation Commission.
No, that's accurate. The Board of Selectmen chief chief officials,
Right.
but conservation, so they can always take land. But conservation has, through state law, the ability to manage land for conservation purposes. And so it is traditionally, you usually give a conservation restriction, and conservation property is usually managed by the town.
Is that how you've done other open
And
space?
Concom, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So referring to it specifically in the deed is not unusual, because I think that's what
No,
Lou's
it's-
question was.
No, did it say to the town through the Conservation Commission?
Maybe you could read it
That's-
for.
This is what it says here. Consideration of $10 Wall Street grants to the town of Norfolk, Massachusetts Municipal Corporation acting and through its Conservation Commission, whose offices are located at 1 Liberty Lane, Norfolk, Mass, in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 8C.
It's
That's
standard.
That's the thing. Then, we had a reservation in there to, the grantor reserve the right to enter onto the parcels to complete work as may be authorized by the planning board of the town of Norfolk under a certificate of approval for the Fernbridge Estate subdivision. And then they added, that was to, in case we have to do any additional work on the detention basin that's out there in the open space. And then they added, so long as said work does not materially impair the conservation values associated with the premises. So, I don't want to get into somebody's opinion as to whether or not we're impeding conservation values by either cutting the grass, moving and seeding and doing anything else that needs to be done. This is a couple of years down the line when we go to ask for acceptance of the street. You're gonna ask us to do certain things, and then somebody's gonna say, oh, well, you're impairing the conservation values of the property, so I don't
think we've ever had a problem with that in accepting a roadway.
It only suggests that the planning board shouldn't authorize something that would be not in harmony with the reason the town took the land in the first place. So it's belt and suspenders. You're doing the work under our approval. We wouldn't want to devalue the conservation land. And they're just reminding you of that.
But I'm just in the middle. So,
Yeah.
I have a certificate of approval that I have to meet certain conditions, and then you're gonna put this condition on me that I can't do the work that's in the certificate of approval if I'm
Yeah.
materially interfering with.
But
So that's.
that's all upland though, isn't it? There's
Yeah,
no
it's all-
wetlands
Yeah,
involved.
there's no wetlands involved.
They wouldn't have any say in a lot of that.
I think the
Well,
It's not
statement,
that.
unless
They're
you're
gonna be the
materially
manager.
interfering, is the key there. So all the work that you're approved to do, you'll be able to do unless it materially interferes. So none of the work you're approved to do should materially interfere.
Okay. I'll redo the deed. I just want it in the record that,
Yeah.
we have to complete certain things that are for the drainage, stormwater management that are located on the open space. And I don't want to have someone come down the line if Bob goes out and does an inspection and we're deficient in a certain area. I don't want to be prevented from doing that because, we conveyed the property away. That's why we've kind of held it for this long. Unless we want to hold on to it until street acceptance, that would be a different story. Then we'd have the right to continue to work there. So-
No, I think it makes sense to do it now. These are the final lots being released, and that's what we talked about, so I
Right.
appreciate you being proactive on it. And I know in the 4 years since I've been, part of the board, there haven't been any issues associated with, that type of language and such, assuming that that's pretty consistent with what we've used in the past. It just hasn't been an issue, so
Okay.
I don't think it's anything that's meant to create any problems for you in the future. I certainly don't
Okay,
feel
so
that's-
what I'll do then is I'll make this is a red line version that was provided by your town council. So I'll make those changes and then I'll submit it to the board and the board can look at it one last time and then if it's okay at the next meeting, then we'll sign it and you guys can record it if you want, or you can hold it if you want. That's really up to you. But that's pretty much the issues for
We'll be
tonight.
recording it, won't we? So it doesn't get lost.
And I appreciate the fact that you've been working collaboratively with Bob now for quite some time. Bob McGee, DPW Director. Bob, things have gone pretty well there, I take it?
I don't know what the rules are.
Works, well, to tell you the truth, there hasn't been really much action in the subdivision. Excuse me? That's up.
Yeah.
But there hasn't been really any inspections noteworthy in the subdivision. Because most of the work's been done, is being performed in, house building and so forth. Other things that are going on is the conditions for the last lots were that we have an agreement that Jack and I, the town administrator, wrote up with regards to work outstanding on Winston Road and Turner Road. And if you like, I can just briefly tell you that, first of all, over in Holbrook Street, which is also part of one of the off-site mitigation conditions, is Holbrook Street substantially complete with the exception of some planting. That's done and up and running. You may have gone down there to see for yourself. But on Winston Road, we, the town administrator and I made some conditions because it was in our opinion that the people in Winston Road have waited long enough to have a paved road, a landscape, and even manicured road. It's just a straight shot for heavy equipment passing through to do work in the subdivision, so if it was any twisting or turning or something like that that might damage the pavement, I'd have some concerns. So what we'd like to do right now is the sidewalks are in a binder condition. We'd like to backfill the sidewalks and transition the loom into the private properties and seed it. Put the sidewalks in on Winston Road. Spill a little loom in the front of that sidewalk until, just so it's in place, because once the road's paved, you don't want to twist and turn with bobcats to, scuff the top finish coat condition and so forth, so it's just handwork. Couple other things, there was a bond for Turner Street that expired. Lou just gave me a $15,000 bond. This is one of the conditions, so that's in place. The $25,000 bond is still in place from Winston Road. That goes to expire, I think, in August. But we hope to have the work complete by then. Another condition is that we have some snow plowing issues that he's going to have to pay for this winter. That budget's taken a beat, so everybody's got to pay their due. So that's outstanding. But other than that, what I can do is, we're working together to get this done. He's going to start to load the loom and do some of the prep work for paving. And I can stay in touch with Ray and bring him into the picture. And I guess when that road's paved and it's time, I can issue a letter to you that whatever you're doing with the lots will be fine.
So the timetable on that, how long do you think it's going to take?
I'd like to pave in a couple of weeks. Now, Lou's got, although he's got a bond here, he's responsible for the pavement, and he'd prefer not to do it for maybe till the end of May. Is that what?
Well, scheduling wise, we're just coming out of the winter, we're getting rain every other day now, so there's a lot of stuff to do to get to the point where we can pave it without having any other work to do, as Bob's suggesting, like looming, seeding, and all that other stuff. So we're going to ramp it up as quickly as we can. I'm shooting for sort of like the end of May, but it's really going to be depending on the paving company to get out there, and they're doing other work in town, so hopefully they can piggyback on top of that.
In Turner Street, you said that there's work left to be done on Turner?
There is work to be done on Turner Street. I still have a $15,000 bond there, but I feel that Turner Street could probably wait till the subdivision gets paved, because at the same time, I'd like to partner up with that paving project and pave further down on Turner Road where the asphalt's deteriorated. So we're not having seams and, work done one season, then work done another season. I haven't heard too much from the people on Turner Street. The road's passable and, it's a smooth ride and so forth. But I think that would be smart construction sequence to wait for the subdivision to be paved, to do that at the same time.
They're all cutting through Fern Ridge right now.
I didn't understand. Were you saying you'd like the pavement, the course of pavement on Winston to be done more earlier than he's suggesting, or are you okay with waiting till the end of May?
We could do it as soon as possible. It's one of those jobs where it's probably not a lot of work for, like, the big aggregate industries that I'm gonna use, so I'm gonna line it up with something else they have going on in town. So they might do, like, Winston Road in the morning, and I'll take them somewhere else. But it's, you know, there's a financial issue maybe that, I don't know. We can do it next week even. We get a raise covers, we get some asphalt preparation work to do,
Yeah.
patching and so forth, but we're ready to go as soon as Lou is.
Originally, we weren't considering doing this paving work until the subdivision, until we topped the whole subdivision off. But because of there seems to be some desire on the part of the town to do the public way portion now and have us do the subdivision when it's ready, we're sort of expediting things up a little bit, speeding things up a bit. But there's work to be done before, you can't just go and pave. There's catch basins, there's covers, there's other things that have to be raised, and you gotta get people out there to do it. So, and they don't work in the rain, so it's just managing the resources.
So there's no problems with the old cul-de-sacs or anything?
No, it's a straightaway. So,
There were trees that needed to be planted, right? Were they the size trees we normally put in?
There are, Andrea, I think there's three.
there's three on the
trees
cul-de-sac that we're gonna put
to be
in.
spotted up there, but it probably makes sense to do trees all together. That's probably something that can wait till
Yeah.
he does a tree planting there, so we have, you know, caliper size and everything, you know, growth and maturity all at the same time. Why do three now and maybe three next year?
I understand, I just want to make sure you watch for make sure the same trees that you would have put in.
Well, they all grow.
Yeah, I know, but it's very difficult for a subdivision to go into an old neighborhood. It's very difficult,
Okay, there's no trees on the street anyways, yeah, so
yeah.
that's
Tom,
real.
do you have anything that you want to add to this, or is it?
No, we haven't been involved with the subdivision recently, so.
All right. Anyone on the board have any objection to releasing lots 22, 21, and 20?
No.
No opposition. So does someone want to make a motion for that?
Excuse me, Steve, this
Yes.
is with the conditions that Winston Road is complete and with the
Well, that's
satisfaction-
bonded and everything, right? That's outside of us. I mean, that's work that's being handled through
Well,
you.
the bond becomes equal to the cost of paving at some point, but it isn't there right now.
Oh,
The agreement should be,
I'm willing to have the board approve it, sign it, and hold it
Oh,
until.
Till Bob
till the
signs
end.
off?
Yeah, till Bob
All right.
signs off. I mean, I have
That
no
seems
objections to
reasonable.
that.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
That
Great.
way I don't have to keep coming back on the same issue.
all right. Does somebody want to make a motion on
All right.
that?
I move to release lot number 9, 10, and 11 on the subdivision plan for Fern Ridge, dated June 10th, 2009, revised September 1, 2010, as shown as lots 22, 21, and 20 on the land court plan number 41850C.
Subject to a condition? Subject,
Well, we'll hold this. It's just that it will be held by the planning board until the highway superintendent acknowledges that the work has been completed as agreed. Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
We need at least 2 copies signed. One for the register.
I'll start one here.
And I put your names on the line, so. That's
I
another
got it here.
thank you.
Here's one.
Anybody remember rules of order? I don't think associate members can make motions.
No.
Yeah, just double checking. Associate member. Not accustomed to
A
that.
well-qualified associate.
Need
No,
me to
but
sign
still.
another one there, guys? Yeah.
There's a couple more.
Couple more, yeah, okay.
Betsy, send me an email to give you, to scan that road chart. The old roads.
Thank you.
Just put down
See
the
you
old
later.
roads
Lou,
chart.
take
I'll
care.
know what it is. Can you send it to my home address?
Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Sandy Knoll Estates 2, earth removal permit.
Oh, yeah. Pass that to Betsy, would you please?
Yes, I certainly will.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi.
Taking the liberty of making some photos of the area. I've taken the liberty of making some photos of the area so that people could be reminded
Okay. Yep. Tom and I will
of
share.
what they're looking at.
Yeah.
And also, I have some plans.
So you guys, all right, well, here, we can share this.
That's why they call it sand.
I'll share with Steve.
Okay, all right, I got my own set then.
This,
Knife and throw.
Is there a problem with that microphone?
Oh, it's not on.
To get the green light?
There you go.
Well-named street, huh?
Someday I'll be a star.
Technical difficulty.
I also submitted a plan showing where all the septic systems in the subdivision were going to be located, and I believe Betsy gave that along to Mr. Houston. I brought several of these plans along with me. Last time we were here,
Thank you.
Last time we were here, we had agreed upon posting a bond figure, coming in and showing you all the locations of each home and the septic systems, and we have them all approved by the Board of Health.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. All approved by the Board of Health, and we've had a bond figure established, and what we're here tonight is to have the reinstatement of our earth removal and acceptance of the figure from this board for the bond figure so that we can post the bond. We have brought our account up to date financially with the planning office.
Oh, it's the town.
So I think we've done everything that we had previously said that we would do, along with not doing any work on the Norfolk side till we came back to you.
Betsy, do we have a copy of the bond that he's talking about? Ah,
Oh, thank you, Bill.
Is it all sand?
There is some loam, but mostly sand.
oh, so this is your estimate
Yes.
here? Oh, okay.
When did you take these?
Within the last week, 10 days?
So this road, I don't see it labeled here. What's the name of that road? That's where we
Basically,
met.
I wanted to show you, I got a picture of
Oh,
the road here
yeah,
that's
that-
coming up. You
Yep.
can see that we contoured the street
Oh, yeah.
to
that's
the existing ground.
Silver Fox Road.
To meet the slope requirements of the community.
He's putting his,
What's going
Yeah.
away.
the dashed is what's going away. He's taking a 12-foot cut. 162, stays 162, stays flat all the way across.
So we have one existing home here, we have 4 proposed, correct?
The
Just to
existing
make sure.
home, of course, has nothing to do with
It's on
it. We did, we
that
did, we
road,
did
yeah.
plot it, and we have an additional lot where your left hand is
Oh,
that we
does.
haven't perked yet.
This is
Well, the
162,
original.
yeah,
Right,
original
yes.
too.
They're all, as you can see, oversized lots. And we've typically let the,
68,
put the house about 60 to 70 feet off the road.
This is where he had it stock coins.
Is it?
I'm
Is this a
sorry.
natural?
Did you want to take a look at the,
On this lot
costing for a
2B,
bond?
is this a natural
Mound?
knoll, or is this just?
This was all a natural knoll. Matter of fact, that's why I dropped the pictures off.
That's, yeah, it's in one of those pictures,
If we
isn't it?
might take a peek at
Yeah.
it, you could see from the road
Oh, it's over there. It's on that side.
going up,
This is 2B?
that would be approximately 2B.
Doesn't yield it.
I'm sorry? You can see the existing tree line with the heights?
Yeah.
That's why I brought them in. It's not something that we piled up, it's pretty much existing natural material.
This is a close-up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can you see it? What's
That's
that,
the
160?
bond.
Yeah, what's it,
Estimate, yeah.
167?
I made them because it's easier, I think, than trying to look at a plan with a lot of lines on it that shows.
Okay, now, is this earth movement, it is mostly being moved, it's not being, because you have a hole over here you have to fill, right?
We have some fill, but we have, of course, some conservation land that we cannot fill.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
But
it-
I think that was part of our conversation before, was that you've got an area that you have to
What
put some of this fill.
What we have done is I've had the engineers calculate that we have approximately 5,000 yards of material that needs to be filled in.
And what's the total number of yards that are going to be
Well,
taken off?
he's got 29,000 total, which seems to be a little bit on the high side. I didn't do the calculations, so
Yeah. So when do you plan on starting this?
as soon
As soon as we give you the
as we get
permission?
your tacit approval.
How quickly is this going to be done?
Well, I'm posting.
That's always been the issue, you know that, yeah.
Well, I'm going to try to post a bond if you accept the bond figure, and we would like to get started now that, if the good weather ever comes, get started fairly quickly.
How long do you think it will take you to do most of this?
The homes or the road?
I'm only concerned about all the excavation and everything. You know, all of this work to prepare the lots. That's what I'm concerned about, and getting rid of most of the big piles that are there, because that's what's impacting one of the abutters.
I mean, said another way, this is A&R, right? This is an A&R plan, right? So we wouldn't get into some of the things we would get into in a subdivision review or something like that, right?
But it is earth removal.
But it's
and
earth removal,
And that's
so-
what I'm
This wasn't a
asking
subdivision
about.
once before?
It is part of a subdivision. It is
Yeah,
all
but-
still part of a subdivision.
It was a subdivision once.
But this isn't an approved plan. This isn't part of an approved.
Yes, it is.
It was originally.
Dated March 17, 2014.
I think that's
just this
just these
survey.
Sorry,
details.
that's just the detail. What I did have them is to plot each particular home with each septic system on that particular
okay.
plan, rather than show you just individual plans. This is all together.
Okay. Okay. Understood.
Yeah, so let me just see if I can get an answer on that. How quickly do you think a lot of this will be done? Because you know that you have an abutter that's been bothered by this for a long time, so.
I think what we can satisfy everyone is, we had screened some loam, and we screened gravel. I've got another lot in Norfolk that I need material on, i.e. gravel. We can move the screening operation away from this particular property, move it over to, I know you don't want to hear it, Franklin, because it's on both sides. I own both sides of the street. When the crow flies, he doesn't know which is Norfolk, which is Franklin. I'm like the crow. To answer your question, we'd like to get started. Hopefully, we'd have all the material out of there by the end of the summer. But we won't screen, we'll just move. We can move the screener across the street. We have to store more loom back on because each one of the lots will require
Right.
looming, et cetera.
Following that timetable, the next logical question is the one that you we're going to answer earlier, which is, when will all the houses be built?
Well, we plan on starting a house within 60 days. We are somewhat limited as far as putting up specs, and we are somewhat limited as far as the sales go with the real estate. But we do have we have bank financing in place everywhere, and so we would like to definitely have, I would hope by the end of the year, 3 up and standing, with the remaining 1 and the other lot for next year.
Well, could we get a firm date from you? Because I'd like to have a firm date, because...
Firm date for the removal of all the material?
Yeah.
Isn't there a rule he's not allowed to bring it over town lines? Just pick it up from here, bring it over to town, to a different town?
I don't know if we have that rule. Have you ever heard of it? It might be in our ponderous earth removal
Does it just come in the other
zoning.
direction? We're allowed to leave, but we don't allow to come in?
I think it has to do with the traffic.
Yeah.
Has to do with the truck traffic.
I'm sorry.
Do you remember anything in our zoning that restricts anything from going across town lines from Norfolk? I don't
Not
remember
if you
anything.
have a permit, I mean, that
Yeah.
probably happens all the time.
Yeah.
People remove earth and salt.
Yeah, you're
We're going to bring it to my lot that I'm doing on Old Mill Road right now. I'd like to get several thousand yards that I need there, which was one of the reasons why we bought it, because we have...
Oh, and that's good. That'll take the truck traffic in that direction up, or is it going to be going out onto?
Well, it'd be going both
Oh,
ways.
both ways?
I would suspect some of it's going to be onto Miller Street.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask just a question for
Sure.
clarification? Are you committing, by some date certain, to initiate the rough grading for all 4 of these lots, and to continue through to completion of the rough grading, whether or not there is an active buyer for any of the lots? Is that what you're?
That's what, I think what I'm attempting to tell you, yes.
Okay.
We plan on, predominantly, most of the material is centered on where the big round disc in the plan between, I think it's Lot 2 and Lot 3, is predominantly where the hill is.
Okay.
So we would like to get started and move that material and
So
fill
then I
in the
guess,
pockets
yeah.
that need to be filled in.
If the houses don't sell right away, you do normal stabilization of those lots to make sure
We
there's no
have
erosion.
to do some
and-
stabilization, and then we'll also be working on the road, too, to get that
The
into
road
a
completed,
more finished state.
Mhm. So I guess the chairman's question then is if you can provide a date certain by which the rough grading of the 4 lots would be complete.
Mike is telling me, and that's Mike's end of it, something in the nature of mid to late October. We'd have everything done
And stabilized?
and stabilized.
All right. So,
And any screening thereafter would be,
We'll do the screening. We
Elsewhere.
won't do the screening on this property. We'll do the screening across the street.
And across the street, besides being across the town line, is farther from people, residents who are living here?
It is further away from the gentleman's home, and I think that hopefully would satisfy this gentleman that he's not going to hear the screener going 8 hours, 10 hours a day.
We
So-
do have a noise bylaw that we would put in the permit.
well, the permit already exists. We just withdrew the permit, and we would probably just reissue it. I don't remember whether or not there's anything in there about the
Work.
the noise, but it
Well,
probably has restrictions on times of operation.
The standard.
does.
There's a town bylaw, I believe, of 7 to 7, so it's not going to be in the middle of the night. And there's other restrictions, even more rigid about when you can use the roads for gravel removal.
That's good.
Related activities. So, I mean, I think I think the protection is there to protect the abutters.
So, when you say that mid-October, I'm gonna sort of lean towards mid-October as opposed to mid to late October. I'm gonna say
You're not gonna
mid-October.
move it up now on me like the end of December and the 1st of December.
You never know. But mid-October, does that mean all the screening and everything is finished?
Yes.
Everything is done.
Stabilization.
Stabilized,
We'll have
everything.
we'll have houses in the ground, at least by that time, at least 2, and 1 for the winter, for foundation. And we'll be moving on the road, finishing up the road, and with the sidewalk. As you know, we have quite a bit done already, but,
Steve, we
Mr.
could-
Chairman?
Oh, is this our earth removal permit? Okay.
Well, that's the original permit.
Yeah.
So we could reinstate it through the date that you've just negotiated here.
Yeah, well,
October
whatever
15th.
mid-October is, let's see.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick the closest date to the 15th.
please.
There are hours
My
in there,
birthday's
and
the
there are
11th,
also-
so you could pick that date.
There's also a commitment to use Silver Fox Road in the permit.
In the permit, yeah.
So here you go.
15th is a perfect, yeah. Okay. So I'll make a motion to reinstate the earth removal permit for Sandy Knoll Estates 2, provided,
Do you want to hear from the abutter first?
oh, that's right, we do have an abutter
Yeah, I
here,
was gonna
don't we?
say, Steve,
Yeah,
we ought to hear
okay.
from the abutter before you make that motion.
Comment before you make.
Sure.
Paul Butters from Kingsbury Road. Can I just ask, what was the original amount allowed to be removed under this permit?
Let's see.
But I understand it was 29,000 more cubic yards.
That is an estimate, I don't.
So if the permit's for 1,100 or whatever it was, can
I
you
don't-
just up it to 29, now 30,000 or whatever that, without another public hearing on that whole issue?
Well, actually, now that I go back and read the beginning of this, oh, but this has nothing to do with the individual lots. This is just for the roadway that the initial earth removal was for, and that was talking about 1,000 cubic yards. And
We
but
had the roadway in prior to that, though.
yeah, so this is all site work that's left, as opposed to roadway work. So the roadway work was the 1,000 yards. Now we're just talking about site work. Site work is usually not completely covered by the earth removal permit. Site work's usually considered something different.
Can I ask a question? And
Yes.
is a separate permit required for removal of earth from the lots as opposed to the road?
I don't think that the individual lots have to have an individual permit, do they?
Well, it's a
I don't
site
think they
now,
do.
really. It's as opposed to
Didn't we
a lot.
talk about this?
We had an article to change this so that you could move
That's right, we
materials
did it when they were
for
putting in this.
adjacent parcels like this, and I believe it's passed town meeting
Yeah, that's right.
2 years ago. So that gives more flexibility in terms of moving these piles, across the 4 lots.
That's right.
Not sure I'd have to look at it with respect to the town line issue, though.
That was going to be my next question. Is it lot to lot, or is it off the site? He's
Well, you
talking about
still-
Miller Street, which is off the site.
Well,
As far as moving the material, Paul? Oh, as far as the trucking?
The whole thing. Is it,
Back to my original question.
I'm confused.
well, I'm confused still exactly what you're doing, so that's why
I'm comfortable saying that you can move materials
Okay.
across the 4
Well,
parcels.
we had
I'm
offered-
comfortable saying that because of the actions the board took 2 years ago. In terms of moving now materials off-site, now that does.
I only suggested that so that we would screen the material away from Paul's home, so that he wouldn't be disturbed with listening to the screener, which I think was one of the issues that the gentleman had. If you don't, I'll just screen it right in place. And
Yeah, no,
it's
I
much
understand.
easier and less expensive for me to do it. I was trying to pass a courtesy.
But isn't screening a temporary interim step? It goes, is this, you have a net loss, you have a net, they're almost 29,000 cubic yards leaving the 4 lots, where, and so after it gets
That's a
screened,
guesstimate. Yes.
after it gets screened,
We'll mo-
where does it go?
We're going to leave the loom predominantly on site to landscape the homes. As you can see, there's quite a good-sized area. And it was a sand pit, as Paul will testify to. I mean, this isn't something that just was created last weekend. I mean, this has been on for probably 50 years or more. To answer your question, the loom would stay, and we would move the excess gravel.
It would be taken off-site
It
and,
would be taken off-site. For example, I have a lot here on Old Mill Road, which we are currently working on. We have permits on, that we would take some of the gravel there for the septic system there.
there's a lot of material, there's a lot of trucks.
It is, and.
A lot of trucks not knowing what direction they're going, when they're going.
So by all rights, we should draft a second earth removal permit that will cover all the movement of the material that was not originally captured in this first earth removal permit.
Which
Because
is
now we're
everything.
talking about the individual sites, not the roadway, because this was all done when the roadway was being considered, but now there's an enormous amount on the individual sites that has to be moved.
That's
Is that,
Well,
you
not
know,
a
I
second
think
one,
part
right?
of
A second permit.
Mr. Butters' concern, last
Mr.
name is
Butter?
Butter, right?
Oh,
Butters is
oh.
his last name too. Your Butter is Mr. Butters. Has been that, you know, over the years, he's been using this as a screening facility to use this fill in other locations that aren't related to this development. And I think what we're hearing is there's going to be ongoing operation, even if it's moved across the street. And is that okay? I mean, I'm unclear on whether that's even okay. The practice has been going on for the years, and now we're saying it's going to continue to go on.
If you say you're taking it to another site in Franklin, you
I
said?
think he's saying he's taking it to numerous other sites.
Well, I mean, I'm in the building business.
Is that okay to do?
Each one of for the predominantly,
Some-
most
some-
of our lots have Board of Health permits that require septic systems. As you probably might know, gravel is a very precious commodity because most times boards don't like having it moved, even though you have hills. That's why I presented the pictures to you. I mean, we're not looking, these hills were there, put the road in accordance with the design and the flow of the property.
So basically, we're talking about a material balance here, you know, what's coming in, what's going out. And it's, you know, it's consistent with what we talked about that Saturday morning. We said, you know, what's happened has happened, let's look forward, let's get a perspective, you know, look at, you know, how many yards of material, where's it going? So, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was what we had discussed that Saturday morning at the site.
It is
So I
absolutely
think
what
that's
we
what,
discussed.
what Steve is getting at, that we may finally need to do that to manage this properly. If you were just moving material throughout these 4 parcels, I think that's one consideration. I think we encompassed that in a recent bylaw change. I think you'd be okay, but, you know, where it seems you're doing quite a bit more than that, you know, to Steve's point. You know, I think we may need to just understand what it is and, you know, document it accordingly.
Something reasonable. As you could understand, Mr. Palumbo, we bought 55 acres there. Approximately 7 or 8 of them, 9 of them were in Norfolk, and the balance was in Franklin. It was all part of Sandy Knoll, but we did meet the subdivision rules and regulations for each community. Matter of fact, I was bounced like a ping pong ball for several months. My own house, I live up there, I have land in Norfolk and in Franklin. My frontage is in Franklin. does that mean I can't bring a load of loom from my property in Norfolk, travel over my lot in Franklin, and dump it in my backyard?
Well, there's thresholds that trigger an earth removal permit, so you'd be below the
No, but
threshold.
I am moving it to another town.
Well, but you're below a certain threshold in the permit. But I guess, I don't know that any member of the board is going to, look to prevent you from doing ultimately what you want
Then
to
I would
do.
ask-
I think we're just going to try to ensure that it's properly documented and hold
Something
you
that's- we
accountable
can all
for doing it
live- we
in a
live- all
timely
live with.
manner, and to the extent that there's any noise and such as a result of the activity, that people aren't inconvenienced, particularly Mr. Butters here.
Again, that's one of the reasons why I mentioned that we'd move the screener, because it does get noisy, and I think that's one of the things that was upsetting Paul. And again, it's,
Well, realistically, what you said, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, was you're going to move the screening across the street into Franklin.
that was my plan.
Right. Now, I don't know how many yards that is, but it's maybe 50 yards, 75 yards, something like that.
I think it's all of it.
We'd probably screen the loom over there and then move it back into Norfolk
True.
and store it for the
But
future.
what I was getting at was that is the removal of the screening operation by a distance of roughly 100 yards, we'll say, sufficient to really drop the noise level so he's not going to hear it?
It's not. But if it's in Franklin, that piece of machinery, what am I gonna do about it? You don't have any jurisdiction.
No, that wasn't.
What I'm trying to do is I'm
What I
trying
was
to get
trying
it
to
done
do,
as
Paul,
quick
was
as
try
we
to do
can.
something to limit the inconvenience that you have been experiencing. And, obviously, I can't move it and then screen it and then bring it back, but if we can do it locally, 100 yards away, that would block your home further from
That's a hell of a
the
sure.
noise.
That's a
I'm
That's a
trying to
solution.
make an
Can I
accommodation.
ask a question? The hill that you're talking about on this, which is sitting right out behind.
That hill?
Couple homes on Kingsbury.
You're talking about,
Well, the pile of.
Yep, that's
yeah, that's it.
I don't know.
So this is coming up on Silver Fox, correct?
This
on
is
the-
going up on the hill, that's
Right.
correct.
That pile there, that's not a natural hill.
No.
We
Well,
didn't think so.
yeah, but it was done a long time ago,
Yeah.
though.
But it's not natural.
We didn't,
That's right.
we didn't think so.
Roads.
That's right.
A pile that's gonna be screened
Yes.
piece by piece by front-end load or an excavator.
No, he's
over
gonna
the,
move the whole thing over and do
at
his
one- at
screening,
once.
and then do his screening and bring it back.
One fell swoop.
But we want, yeah, that,
For-
the other lot. You take a little at a time,
Well,
rather than inconvenience you,
Well,
Paul. If
no.
we're there every day, you're upset because we're there every day. Now, we haven't been there
Well-
for a couple of months.
well, wait. I'm gonna ask, would you rather, what I'm trying to do is expedite it, so that it gets done quickly, and then it's over with, and you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Well,
That's
the
why I'm
meeting
trying to
is
push
okay.
for a October 15th deadline for this. Would you prefer to have them screen it there and get it over by mid-October, or would you rather have it done, taken off-site and brought back and have it stretch out even longer?
Mr. Chairman, predominantly, we're screening the loam and not the gravel. I mean, the gravel is perfect material as it is, so that,
So it's only loam that you're talking about for
Screening.
screening?
yes, screening, sir, yes.
How much noise, how much noise is the?
It's kind of noisy.
Is it?
He's right. It's kind of noisy, but we don't do it every day.
Oh.
If I did it every day, then, Paul would be upset. I don't blame him. But what do you want to do? Do you want us to screen every day, or do you want us to screen once a
Another
week?
holiday, I happen to have the day off, all day.
Yeah.
This is what's going on.
What do you
I
want
don't
to
know.
do? A couple of days a week?
Well,
It's
Every
not my
day?
decision.
make sure that we don't do anything on holidays. Just stay away from there on holidays.
It's one of those holidays.
I was
where you
actually-
work and have Thanksgiving off. Fourth of
I
July
was
after
thinking
that.
about that, because that was a very large discussion in different subdivisions. What's a holiday and what's
Well,
not?
Patriots Day and Veterans Day were holidays.
Well, I'm
You
a
guys
patriot and a
said
veteran.
that you weren't gonna be out there, and you're out there, so.
I would suggest that an additional 100 yards can only help the situation, and
Yeah.
maybe we just
Right.
include that in the earth removal permit, but that's,
It's not going to solve it, but it helps.
Can I
which
ask-
is, and it's just a loom, it's just a loom.
It's site work versus earth removal. What's going on what day? Because there's different hours for the two things. It can end at different times, work on different days, so
Well,
it's a shell game. So
all
we're
they're
doing
talking
site
about
work.
now is site work. This is all site work.
Which there are hours for that.
The hours, I think, is 7 to 7, right? Yeah.
We have to go back to the original
And then the
decision.
earth
We're not there.
Yeah, but they're not gonna be there until 7 o'clock, I
We're done
think.
at 3.
That's a really good question, the difference between
Don't say anything of the other.
site work and
because I'll
earth
show you the
removal. It's a
base
really good
stuff.
question here.
Well, that would be in the original decision, which we don't have in front of us here, but that's where that would be.
Who's gonna police when they reach that threshold of material that's removed?
It's,
Who even tracks that? This is one of the things that came up in the last, no one's keeping track of this stuff.
is there
You don't
anything there
know.
about an inspector?
Well, they have a Board of Health plan, which commits them to not over-excavate, or they're gonna have to redo their Board of Health plans. So that, and GLM, I'm hearing, is the same firm that did the plan and did the earthwork estimate. So the way to do it would be to excavate down to the grades that are shown on this plan, plus another 6 inches down for the loam or whatever, and that's as deep as they're gonna go. If they over-excavate, they're gonna have to bring stuff back, so they're not gonna do that.
There's also a grade as-built turned in when the house is for occupancy. You can see what the grades are.
Yes.
If we're 20 feet below what we told you we're gonna do, it's gonna be caught.
Well, the septic systems won't work.
The
I mean,
septic
it-
systems are all.
I know,
Yeah.
but it's a grade as-built
Govern
turned in.
that.
The whole as-built for the whole lot.
So I think you can rely on the fact that these are the grades,
Yeah,
and
well-
within an engineering tolerance, you can rely on the 26,000 yards, and that's
And we've
probably
also
reasonably
When's our
accurate.
next meeting?
Next week.
Next week.
Next week? Okay.
It's after-
Try to get everything
after
up front.
election.
The house is only 60 feet, so we are leaving a good-sized buffer, of hundreds of feet from the house, back of the land that we.
Well,
It's
the
supposed to be-
grades
supposed to be a
don't
quick meeting for
appreciably
everybody to
cut
check.
into the forest line that's shown on the plan, so I think
do
it's.
appreciate the fact that they've left a buffer zone there of trees. I mean, I do appreciate that, and that the trees will stay for everybody's benefit, but still, it's kind of, I'm asking these questions only because I've been living it for so long, and these things have come up, and no one's really had the answer for them.
Would you refresh my memory and go over to that map and point to which one was your lot?
This is the
Same
map
thing,
over here.
the same map.
So this is coming, this is
would be
coming up,
Coming up, you're in this area right
yeah, so this is coming up from Miller?
Yeah, this is coming from Miller. You're right, here.
No, so I'm right out.
Yeah.
This big pile here, I'm looking right out, and this guy next door to me, he's got questions about it, so he's
And you are,
asking me.
Okay.
you are all up at a higher
We got
elevation?
we do have a buffer right in here, Paul, which,
Right.
as you know, we're not going to touch.
Yeah.
We have no need to go in.
I think it'll make a big
Trees are
difference moving it even across the street.
It'll help, it'll help.
Yeah.
It won't cure the problem, but it'll help.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so what we're going to do is, I think that we should allow them to start getting this done even before we draft our new decision. Does anyone have an opposition to that? We can just tell them that we're going to restore the one that they've got, but we're going to come up with a second one that details the site work.
To operate under the conditions of this until another earth removal permit can be drafted.
Right.
And we would need your best estimates in terms of what materials, what quantities are going to be moved where.
And we are going to have you keep a
distribution.
log as to what comes and goes.
Well, I got a concern, fellas. When we stood up there on a Saturday morning with you, I don't know, September, October, whatever it was. At that time, the indication was that you'd probably get all this site work done by the end of last year.
No, it was the end of December. You gave me the December 31st, but you shut me down the beginning of December.
Yeah, well, going to be by the end of
We
last year.
We are working on the road.
Right. Now,
I think we want to get the road done as
Right.
fast as we can.
Right.
To get
And
the trees planted,
You
et
put the
cetera.
sidewalk in, I see that,
We're
right?
working on the sidewalk.
Put
We'd
one
like to
curb
get the
in.
red.
Well, my concern is that if you don't have buyers for these lots, you're going to just drag this out for another 2 or 3 years
That's what
until
we're telling, we'll get a,
the market comes
I would-
along.
Well, we spec houses as a matter of fact. I mean, we have spec, the one in 20 Old Mill Road is not sold. It's a spec.
Okay, so here
So
we
we are
are.
going to build a couple of houses on spec. I probably won't get financing, Mr. Byron, for 5 houses to be built on spec.
Here we are with Steve pushing you to be done by October 15th. Okay,
As
now,
far as-
as
as
far
far
as
as prepping
site,
the lots
site
now.
preparations, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah, the grading and everything for
Right,
these lots,
But
yeah.
not, not
So-
the houses, though. I
Right.
mean, I don't
No,
have
no, no,
I don't know how
no,
many
just the
houses
site
I'll have.
preparation.
I just want the noise to be
So,
finished over here.
come 15 October, and it isn't done, what do we got? We got nothing, we just have to wait until it's done, right? I mean, we have no
Well, my-
clout, we have nothing, we have,
Well, my bond would, I presume my permit would have been expired, so that I can't do what I'd like to do without coming back into you and asking you for an extension.
well, I
I presume
understand.
that we have, we're gonna put a time definite on the particular earth removal.
Well, that's something we ought to do, and there ought to be some teeth in it at the end if it isn't done. Just get that site work done.
Well, maybe what we can do is ask you to come before the board on a couple of occasions between now and
Yeah,
October and
yeah.
update the board.
I don't have a
That's an
problem with
idea.
that.
You
know,
can update
I
us.
don't have a problem with that, if, just a notice.
All right, so what we'll do is we'll reinstate this to allow you to get back to work, but it will only last as long as we don't provide a new one, because we will be providing a new earth removal permit
That would be
that will
fine.
cover all the additional material that's here.
And we'll actually replace that. That'll be
It will
obsolete
replace
at
this,
that
yeah.
point.
That's
You
fine.
you have one lot that said on Old Mill Road that you're working on. That won't accept all 29,000 yards,
There
right?
isn't 29,000.
Oh, whatever the net number is.
It
There
will
isn't.
not, that's
There isn't
correct.
even close.
That's
It's
correct.
not even close. You can look yourself, or he's an engineer, you can go down and look at it.
Indeed,
There ain't
indeed.
29,000.
Fair enough, okay. 15, 20,
There's
whatever the
probably
number
five-
is.
Wait a second,
5,000
we
yards
either
of gravel
believe the
there.
engineer or we don't.
25,000 yards, fine,
He's
let's
got
pick a
to
number.
list it in a
Okay, so
scale
you're gonna
map
put
to go
some on
off
that
of.
old lot.
It's
Where
not
are you gonna
rocket
put the
science.
rest of it?
We need some in the Sandy Knoll or Franklin part too. We have septic
And
systems
then the
up
rest,
there.
if we're gonna be up against the deadline, Mr. Byron, well, I can't probably wait to have other lots that would need it. I would probably have to sell some of it off to get it off the site. Unless you can come up with another solution.
And there is a restriction in here that says that you have to use Silver Fox Road.
Do you want to go through what additional information he needs to submit in order for this next permit to be issued?
He has to submit all the information required for the earth removal permit.
A full application?
No, this came from you, right, Tom?
No, it came from Betsy.
Okay. So full new application.
A new application, but I do have just a question to encourage you to expedite the schedule if feasible. And I thought Mr. Byron was gonna, sort of, what he said reminded me, but at one point in time, we had an agreement to finish this work by the end of December, and you were shut down 31 days before that.
Right.
Why is it gonna take more than 31 days to do the work now?
Well, like we're saying, if we're down to a deadline of 30 days, we're gonna put 100 trucks on there and move all the material out of there. Is this what the town wants? I don't want it, I don't think Paul wants it, I don't think Miller Street
I
people
wouldn't
want it.
that.
You
If I knew-
would?
If I knew it was a drop dead end date to this, get it done, yes.
I already had a complaint from the lady on Wildly there in Kingsbury, she come up and she called Betsy about it, that we're complaining because we're working up there too much.
Can I just add one more? If you drive down Myrtle Street there, what is it, Mill River Estates, they just broke ground, they got 2 houses already. The difference between that parcel of land is, there's no good gravel and sand in it. It's not stuff that's worth money to take out. There is here. It was a sand and gravel pit years ago. So there's value in mining that stuff before you ever build a house. So that's what's going on. It's basically, commercial sand.
We're not commercial, Paul, look at the plan.
Well, okay.
You have a house on top of a
I understand what
gravel.
you're
It's
saying.
gonna go on for a long
Well, that's why we want it completely
Right.
finished by
We do too.
mid-October.
If the housing market was so bad, how come you see new houses going up? Well, just in the time we've been, all over town.
And the one in Myrtle
I see
Street's been up
Twills
for
and
6 months,
Estates, I
unsold.
see all sorts
Building,
suggested
of.
we'd
And I
like
would
it
like
sold.
The one in
to
Myrtle Street's unsold, it's been up for 6
Mr.
months.
Chairman,
What steps was piles of dirt down.
confirm our bond figure so that we
Sooner.
can post it.
Did you guys take a look at the,
Could we further discuss the schedule?
Yeah, maybe
And I
it's
don't
sooner
think
than
we want
October
it
15th.
in 30 days, but if it could be done in 30 days,
June, July,
we want to have a
August,
more
September,
protracted, say, August 15th,
In 5.5 months.
before the school year starts?
Oh, well.
Why is it unreasonable? You could do it in 30 days. No, I want to know. Tell me
Fair question.
what burden it would impose upon you
Okay.
to,
What happens if
to
everybody
shorten
on
it
Miller
by-
Street starts complaining, there's gravel trucks going up and down the road all day and they
They'll-
can't move?
they'll know-
I
You
got,
have
I got complaints already.
They have
When
a-
we
you-
pushed it to December 31st. I had women come up, and Betsy can write there, if she was gonna call you, that, you know, there's too much noise up there, there's too much traffic up there. What's gonna happen when we send 20 trucks down the road all day, up and down Miller Street? I don't think the road will handle it. We've been going nice and easy and nice and slow. We've had nothing but fall. We've been here 10 years.
Why don't we do
Well,
this?
th-
Why don't
yeah,
we
there you go.
keep?
You just,
Well,
you just
I
said
don't
it
count.
yourself. You've been
No,
there
you
for
count.
10 years.
No,
I hope I-
no,
All right,
listen to
gentlemen,
Yeah.
I suggest keep the October date, but we will ask you to come before this board and update us, and we expect to see
along.
progress, that this thing is moving along, because if we get to that point and it's not complete, I don't think that the prospects are gonna be good for any earth
Okay, that's
removal
fine.
permit from
I'll
this
do it.
board anytime
We've
soon.
done exactly what we said we would do. We haven't worked on the site since December. We haven't touched a spoonful. And that we promised to come in and post a bond for the work on the subdivision. And we are going, and we brought this in so that we have all the lots, everything's designed. The material that needs to come out is shown. Anything that you come up with on a reasonable basis that allows us, that gives you enough strength on one side, but gives us a little flexibility so that we can finish the job, and everybody's happy.
I
Okay.
think if, we should have a date set by which they have to submit their new application as well.
Right.
Otherwise, we revoke.
For the
Revoke,
earth
right.
removal, for
Yep.
their new earth removal.
Otherwise, that gets revoked.
Yeah, you
Otherwise
do
it
have to
gets
have an
revoked by that
application
date.
for new earth removal
By a
permit
certain
first.
date.
And since we're going to
2
be
weeks?
drafting it at our next meeting, it should be in as soon as possible.
I mean, the plan is probably the key component. They need to supplement it with a sedimentation and erosion control plan and things like that, but this plan represents a substantial portion of the work. So it's the application, sedimentation, erosion plan, and details. I mean, I think it.
Tom, wouldn't you like to
It's
know?
not a huge level of effort, I don't think.
Wouldn't you like to know a rough idea of how much is loam and how much is gravel, so that you have a sense of how much is staying here and how much is gotta leave, and then you have a sense of the trucks?
I think that's an excellent point, yes. We should
I
have a
think the
breakdown
pictures
of
might
materials.
depict some of the pile.
I'd like to have- yeah,
Predominantly
but-
is gravel.
Numbers are better.
Numbers are better.
Yeah,
You can't, I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking the engineer probably got it right, so I'd like to have some sense.
But what he measured, obviously measured the piles, took a topo on it and built it
Sure.
in that way. I don't think he climbed up and said, well, there's 2,000 yards of loom and this.
Tom, can he get an estimate?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I think most of the loam is in that pile, is it not?
All the loom is in the.
That's all from the whole.
Right.
Do you want to make a
So that's
motion?
easy enough to
Franklin
estimate
too.
that quantity.
Okay, where's the existing earth removal permit?
That's easy to do, estimate the
Could we have that
quantity.
earth removal permit back for a second?
I'll have my engineer by
Next
letter
week.
estimate the amount of loom on the project.
Just include it with the application,
I'm
it
trying to
doesn't
get a
have to be
draft
separate.
earth removal permit next week. What do we want to do? What's the next one after that?
This is
Hey, Bill.
Sandy Knoll.
I guess, I
Say
reckon.
May
I think
15th, by May 15th.
Yeah.
It's not a
yeah.
stranger.
All right.
You want to go to May?
Yeah. Hold on 1 minute here.
It's a Thursday. 15th is a Thursday.
Okay. So that's good.
Would you like us here on that meeting, the next meeting? Is that what you're?
No, we're asking that you submit a new permit application.
Yeah.
We're not going to reinstate this one.
We will, we
Yeah,
will,
until they do
and
the
this will, this will be in effect until you get the new one.
Well, this will be in effect until you give us your application permit, which we're setting a date of May 15th that you have to have that permit in by. If you don't get the permit in by the 15th, this gets revoked as of the 15th. So that's the first teeth that we put into it. Then if you hit the date of the 15th, you give us our application, then it's on us to write the new decision. And as soon as we write the new decision, this goes away and the new one goes in place.
We may have a decision written before the application comes in.
That's only for the road. Is that,
Gino could draft
is
it.
that done and over with?
That permit? Yeah, but we're gonna use it so that we can allow the gentleman to continue, or else the date can
That's why
get
this
pushed
is,
further out.
Yeah,
That's
we're,
basically what
we're just trying to get it finished.
The end of May if we wait until we have a new decision. So,
Okay,
we want to
so-
lose a month.
What we'll do, I'll make a motion, and just so I'll explain it first. So I'll make a motion to reinstate this earth removal permit and notice of decision for Sandy Knoll Estates, Roman numeral 2, dated June 4th, 2010. So make a motion to reinstate this through May 15th, 2014. And at which time it's the expectation of the board that we will have all the necessary information so that we could have a replacement earth removal permit, which is more appropriate, for you to continue your activities. So it's up to you gentlemen to get that information in place so that
Along with the letter
have
regarding how much loom is actually.
continuous.
Second for discussion.
Where are
Point
we
of-
with the screening issue?
point of
Do you want to
clar-
screen in Franklin, or do you want to screen in Norfolk?
Was that a
What's the
motion?
board want to do?
Don't screen it on that site, move it as
Just
far
across the
away
street,
as you
okay.
can get
Is
it.
that okay with you, Paul?
Was that a motion, Steve?
It's,
he
I
said,
think
he
there's
said
a,
for discussion.
All right.
yeah.
Waits for you.
Point of clarification, sir.
Yes.
If we pick the date of the 15th, we don't meet again after the 6th until the 20th. So there's a 5 or 6 day interim period when that doesn't apply, and he doesn't have a new permit because we're not around to sign it. Does it make sense? So he's going to stop again for
Well-
6 days.
Secondary point of clarification.
Well, let's just clarify that one. Do you want to extend your motion out to the 20th?
20th, right.
So moved.
Well, double check first. Is this a permit that needs to be advertised?
I don't think that we have to advertise an earth removal permit, do we? Have you had to advertise them in the past?
They usually
I-
cover another thing.
It's
This is-
generally done in conjunction.
It's normally done in conjunction with a site plan, but just don't want to trip them up.
No, understand.
Well, even so, I mean, there's enough time to advertise twice, right? Isn't
Well,
it by May 20th?
We could amend this one and approach it that way. Rather than replace. Maybe that's.
We still want the information by the 15th, whether or
Right.
not, the question of dual advertisement is based on how long does this stay alive
And the way he
while we're
phrased it.
reviewing
Yeah,
it.
he phrased it, this ends on the 15th.
Right, so he
Which-
shot it out to the 20th, which may not give us enough time
Right.
to advertise if we
Right.
have to.
Right.
But if we're amending that, then it should still give us enough time.
The motion
was for
could be
1,000
that
cubic
that
yards.
permit terminates if the application is not filed by the 15th.
That's,
So if,
And good until
Is-
replaced
yeah.
by the new.
yes.
Right, that's
So-
fine.
Yeah,
That language
yeah,
is
that
okay.
That sounds reasonable, with the additional information that we asked for to be provided.
So that
I honestly don't know off the top of my head if it's an advertised permit hearing or not, but just in
That gives
case,
us
these
some
poor guys
flexibility.
will be sitting on their hands.
It's
Okay,
flexibility.
so I will try this again.
right, here comes the motion.
Okay, motion to reinstate the earth removal permit and notice of decision for Sandy Knoll Estates 2, dated June 4th, 2010. The permit will remain in effect until replaced, contingent upon receipt of a suitable application for the replacement earth removal permit on or before May 15th, 2014. Details of that permit will include details related to the nature of the earthen material, and the location at which the earthen material will be transferred. And there will be restriction as to the amount of screening which will take place on the property. And I would suggest that you include that in your application in order for it to be.
Screen across the street. My question to you, Mr. Palumbo, is
we have a date certain. We do have 20,000 yards of material. Are you saying that we cannot sell some of this so that we can meet the deadline? I don't have a use today for 20,000 yards. And I don't anticipate, since all of my systems are in the ground here, needing any material for these lots
We've
either.
never had an objection to anyone.
That's,
As long as they get
Is that
it, if they have to take it out, they have to take it out. It doesn't matter whether they transfer it to somebody else's
your
land or
question-
they sell it.
your question isn't about the old permit. Your question is how do you write the application for the new permit?
Well, if.
Write it the way you need to write it, and we'll discuss it when we get it.
Well, I mean, removal is removal. What difference does it make what he does with it?
He was talking about going to multiple different lots, and so we needed to know where the traffic was going.
Right, so,
And when it was
which is
going
usually
there,
our only
and how
concern
much.
with the earth removal.
Right, and we don't know where it's going, so we
Right.
need to know.
Neither does he.
And neither does he,
Right this-
as it
right
turns
this-
out.
Right this minute, I don't know, other than 2,000 or 3,000 yards going to Old
Right.
Mill Road.
Sure.
I don't, if we're going to be on a date certain, I would probably have to sell some of it off.
Yeah, all we need to know is that it's not gonna be there.
Yeah.
Right? by the end-
That's
We don't
what
care
the
if you
thing-
sell
that's
it.
what-
And you need to
that's
tell
what
us how much is
exactly.
not gonna be there, so that
I'll
we
do
can.
that, and I'll tell you how much loom is gonna be back over
Yep.
there. There
Yep.
won't be
Yep.
log.
Okay.
There's never been
I think
a
we're all on the
restriction
same page
Selling
now.
or not
Okay.
selling.
The question I have is, I understand now there's a $1,500 fee for the earth removal permit?
Well,
Is that something where we could work out?
So this,
well, it-
are we amending this? Is that we
No,
ended up?
That was
No.
1,000 cubic yards.
Yeah, so we're gonna replace, no,
You're
we're gonna put a
replace it.
new
All right,
one.
well, in that case, the question's valid, right? I thought you were still in the amendment.
well, does anyone have any objection of waiving the fees except for the advertisements?
If necessary, right?
If necessary.
Necessary. No.
Yeah, because
No.
I'd include that as part of the motion if, because we haven't seconded it yet.
So moved.
Do you want to amend it so that we can just say that we'll waive the fees except advertisement fees?
I have a little hesitation because we have a number of conditions that are being placed on this, and we have an abutter who's already said, it's a sensitive area. So I don't know that some of that money wouldn't be used for inspections.
I do have inspection money already in the till,
Just asking.
and we're going to give you an up-to-date and come in with our logs and appear at your convenience while we're working on it.
Good point, but I want to know whether or not anyone else feels as though we should waive the fees except for advertisement if necessary.
I mean, this is an ongoing.
It is an ongoing thing, that's why I'm
And
thinking
if
that
there, waive the fees except for advertising if necessary.
necessary.
Right.
And you guys agree?
So I'd like to, so,
Yes, with the exception of, the gentleman said that he already has inspection fees built into the,
Well, I
That's
have-
the normal
I
fees
have
for
the
anything.
fees for the
Right,
subdivision,
right.
yes, sir.
right.
He has had given me money for, in his observation account.
And how much is in there?
I gave them $3,000
No,
within the last 30 days.
Yeah, that's what's in there.
I'm willing to waive it to move things off the mark, but I think, to truly look at it and be fair, we're issuing a complete new decision based on a whole different way of looking at it than when the original application was submitted, and honestly, it's,
Oh, you mean for this one?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not feeling the pain too much, but I want to expedite things. I don't want to, I would, rule to waive it only to help get the thing off the mark, not
Right.
because I'm feeling the pain of any,
So, can I just, the application fee is
Burden of fees.
$500, and then
I came in late.
you
I'm
could
not-
waive the review fee, which is 1,000, just because he's already has money in his review account.
Well, what's the advertisement cost for it, if it's needed?
It's probably, probably about 150, 190,
I'd rather just leave it at that.
the 900.
Because we've already got a permit that we're just gonna supersede.
Right, so what I'm saying is keep the application fee of $500 and waive the review fee, because we already have review money in his account.
Down to 2/3.
So the $500 will
The
cover,
proposal was us pay why don't I give you a check for 300 to take care of any advertising fees that are needed, and whatever's left you can put in our account for inspection.
it doesn't really work that way, because the application fee is turned over to the town's general fund.
Well, it's 53G, so-
20,000 a
The other
year
money's
out there for
53G
finished
review
lots that aren't used.
Well, but we've done this before. I know that we've done this before, where we've waived application fees and only had.
Charge
people-
them the advertising
Charge them
cost?
for the advertisement. This isn't the first time we've done it.
Well, I'm with Michelle. Just to get this thing moving, let's waive.
So that's
the,
been added to the motion. Is there a second on the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay. You'll have it.
And just to be redundant, the bond figure is the bond figure.
The bond is covered separately. Did everyone look at the bond?
Yep.
You guys look at the
I didn't
bond?
see it, Steve.
I think it's pretty much covers everything that's gonna have to go in there.
No, Dad, bring them back the next time with the full application. Thank you. I'm Andrea.
We're not looking, we're not voting on the bond tonight, right?
We could vote on the bond.
Yeah, it's true.
Do you feel as though it's not necessary, or,
Is he here for it?
Yeah, he'd like to get the bond.
I'd like to get it started, yeah. I'd like to go to the bank and get the paperwork going.
You're the boss, Steve.
Oh, okay.
You make a
Do you
decision.
want to make a motion on that, to set the bond?
So has everyone seen this? I apologize, I'm in
Yes,
late
yes.
here.
Yeah, it's been around.
I mean, so long as everyone's comfortable with this bond, then I'd like to
You
make a
want to?
motion that we
Okay,
accept the
yeah.
cost to complete for Sandy Knowles Estate, Norfolk, Mass, in the amount of $210,000.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're all
Cool.
ready to go back to our new seats.
We know it's not right. I'm fine.
Sure, okay. Okay, you're Peter. I'm Michelle.
Okay, there you go.
Okay.
You're Ray.
John Purpose for 134 Main Street. Oh, what? Where is 134 Main Street?
Right next
I
door.
thought that you were, oh,
Lions
it's next
Tree Lot.
door to you.
Call it what it
You
is.
got something in your packet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, you may want to get up, identify yourself, and
Tell us what's going on.
tell us what you want.
Okay, John Purvis, owner.
Something about your mic isn't on, I think.
Get the green light going.
Is it green on? Nothing? She said thank you.
Testing. So, I don't know if Betsy got you a conceptual sketch that I kind of drew together. My engineer didn't get it in time, but looking to put a parking lot adjacent to my existing property and be able to utilize it to parking spots for commuters. And then on the weekends for the general public and for customers of my business.
On the weekends and stuff, is it a fee for a lot or only for the
No,
commuters?
just Monday through Friday. No fee at all on weekends.
How many cars would you propose to park there?
As many as the board will allow me to.
They're pretty,
I
that's
didn't
prescribed.
think so. I would, could I use your, borrow your zoning
Yeah, it's
book?
not the newest, though.
I have it right here,
So-
if you'd like to see it.
Oh, yeah?
Mhm.
And would you,
Says,
which section are you looking at?
I am looking at allowed uses in the B1 district. Says parking lot is principal use as part of a PMLD, except on corner lots.
What's the
What- yeah,
number, though?
What page are you
number?
on?
Or what?
Well, it's section
69.
I, Steve.
Section I?
Yeah.
7,
Okay?
Scary.
Steve, while you're looking, can I
Yeah.
ask a question since we have a zoning
Sure.
enforcement officer here? Bob? Just for clarification, because I ran into John last week when he was out there walking his vacant lot, and so I was chatting with him about it. And there was some concern because outside the business core, you've got a 60% lot coverage. Inside the business core, it's 80%. Did you get a determination exactly what's considered Carlson Circle and what's east and what's west of it?
Carlson Circle, isn't that Carlson Circle?
A determination on where.
Well, no, I know he didn't
outside
file
the
for a
business
formal
was.
determination for you,
Plan
but
multi-lot.
basically,
Set on
east, B1 outside the business core starts east of Carlson Circle.
Correct.
So, based on, what is Carlson Circle? Because, you know, people refer to that area as it, or is it just the road? Because obviously, this will play in quite heavily to what you get for lot coverage, John, as we discussed when I saw you out on the site last week. So, you know, that's something that'll drastically change, you know, his proposal.
I've always thought Carlson Circle was this one, and that was a right-of-way.
No, they're both Carlson Circle. aren't they?
Well,
No, I didn't
see,
think
there's
so.
always been a.
Oh.
Yeah, by coincidence, we happen to have a chairman of the zoning bylaw study committee with his map of town center.
And what's B?
It has to be part of a PMLD, right?
Well, at the end of it all, since Bob's here, don't mean to put him on the spot in short timing, but
He's
The whole,
discussing
the whole
potential
thing is
PML.
Carlson Circle?
Okay.
Just the one piece?
This is all outside the business district.
so Dunkin' Donuts is
60%.
outside the business district? So anything to the right of it would be outside the
Well, it's
business.
outside the business
Business
core.
Business
yeah.
core, right.
Do you
It's
see
still in
it?
the B1, but it's
Coverage
not in,
under that?
it's not in the
Is that
business
what
core.
it's
Do you s-
Correct.
That's correct?
Yep.
in? So that's 60% coverage?
That's 60% lot coverage.
Of pervious?
Well, yeah.
Well, no, pervious or structures.
Well, no, I think it's just lot coverage
Lot coverage.
combined.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, I think you could, can he use pervious and impervious pavement and have it
Right.
not be considered lot coverage?
Right,
Question.
yeah.
No. To me, anything that's paved is impervious, and that's part of the lot coverage.
But if
There's
it's not
not
paved,
paved.
Those are just
you know,
gravel.
the
The whole lot is
sustainable
gravel.
stuff
Every
that-
parking lot, my understanding, has to be paved. so-
Has to be paved, okay.
Yeah.
The only time we've ever waived the paving was for Pond Street and Kids, or
Well, recreational, it's allowed
Kids
not to be
Place, or
paved.
whatever, the
And-
new Kids Place is called.
We've also done it as in secondary parking spaces on some commercial when we've had a lot of commercial. We did it over in Joffrin.
So, Bob, you've seen this already?
Very briefly.
A larger problem may be, it says, except on corner lots, and this appears to be a corner lot.
Well, that right-of-way, I would not consider a street. It's not listed as a street anywhere.
Crescent Circle isn't?
Carlson Circle is, but, you know, if he separates this
Two separate
into a
lots.
planned multi-lot development, then
On a second lot.
that would be a second lot, wouldn't be on a corner. So, as far as the lot coverage goes, that's another issue that you'd have to deal with.
So the only question I have is, in the, and I know the districts are different, but in the C1 district, the off-highway, there's a star next to it says for planned multi-lot. I mean, they only have 60% lot coverage typically, but for planned multi-lot, they're 80%. So is the on-highway, it's allowable more than 60%. So I'd be looking for some type of, says like a dimensional requirement that I can get 80% coverage.
You know,
Well-
when you have a perimeter like this, you can you can bring your percentage down pretty significantly by having a landscape buffer. And a landscape buffer on Main Street may be appropriate. This line of cars along, you know, right along the sidewalk may be better suited with the trees that are there now.
But how is that going to change the impervious surface?
I'm saying
Well,
that he can bring it down.
You'd have to increase the pervious permeous surface, so that
Put in a
you'd
landscape
lose some of
buffer.
these,
More
you'd
landscape.
lose some of the
You lose
spaces.
some parking.
Yeah, so he wants to go, he wants something less, he wants something more than 60%. He wants to have, and I'm saying 80% is only a 20% pervious, and on a lot like this, there's a real value to having a landscape buffer along edges. And you can get, that adds up quick.
As you've drawn it in this sketch, do you have any idea, and this would, with the new design and everything, have you done any rough calculations to see where you're at in terms of percentage?
My engineer's working on that, he didn't have it in time.
No,
looks like it-
nothing rough.
I mean,
Did you have
Well,
something?
this is rough, and it's 48 lots and 100%
There's
coverage.
about-
John, why don't you grab it, the other mic too? Make sure it's on.
Yeah. Bob, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, if this is a planned multi-lot development, you'd have two lots, one for
Because he
where
needs
the
that for
Dunkin'
Dunkin'
Donuts building is, one where the parking would be.
Right.
Each one would have to have a 60% lot coverage, so, number one, he'd have to make sure that he has 60%.
On Dunkin' Donuts.
Only on the Dunkin' Donuts lot, which may, infringe on his ability to have the second lot, a size that would actually work with 60% lot coverage as well. So, I mean, when people come up to the window and just ask questions, I don't look at the whole thing as a full review. If they've drawn a plan and we sit down and go through it and do the whole zoning review on it, then I would get into, each section of the zoning and go through it, which isn't something that we've done. These have been ideas that have just kind of been bantered about, but, not fully vented, so.
I didn't mean to throw you on the spot, you just happened to be
But
there.
it does appear as if they'd have to bring the Dunkin' Donuts site up to 60% also, because that doesn't look like it's 60%, is it?
It's got some.
it might be after the lane's done.
And you've got some buffer on all three sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
There's some.
I mean, the map either proves out or it doesn't prove
Yeah,
out.
that's true.
I mean,
Probably not
rather
too
than
far off.
speculate.
Yeah.
The only problem is, obviously, you're going down to 60%, is it gonna make a, lower diminishing returns, you're gonna lose spots. So, doesn't make sense for you to do it there with losing X number of spots, until you actually, put a percentage to the lots.
And usually something like this, where it's just the perimeter, you're probably, I would guess, 70 to 80% impervious with what he sketched out here. Also, a suggestion, kind of a standard rule of thumb in any site plan, you want to maximize the spaces, you park the perimeter. So would you put perpendicular spaces all the way around the perimeter of the lot, and then whatever you can make up in the middle, but you get most of your spaces, because you get these long rows of perpendicular spaces, so it should be laid out with perpendicular around the edge, and whatever you can fit in the middle is so much the better. You don't want these parallel spaces.
So kind of opposite of what you've done.
I'm curious, because it wasn't too long ago that I think we looked at a conceptual plan for actually, I don't know if it was a bank
Yeah,
or something
bank.
like that. So, I mean, do you view this as something that might be temporary, that at some time, down the road, there might be some interest in developing it with a commercial, some type of commercial establishment, or?
I mean, I see this as the quickest way to make a return on investment. I mean, I've generated some interest with, in regards to the lot next door, but it's mostly food establishments, so I don't want to put a food establishment next to me, because it's direct competition. I mean, the thing with the bank, didn't hear back from them, so. I mean, this would be more of a permanent thing, because I would see it as that, people on weekends, they can park there too, because obviously I get congested on weekends, that's why I'm doing my drive-through lane, and then I'd have all these extra spots, people can park there too. So, I mean, I see it being, it would help me, it would definitely help me for sure. I mean, and I've definitely had, residents that park down by the old town, the old town hall.
Yeah.
They said that they would park here in a second, so.
Yeah, well,
Sure,
you're going to
more.
charge more than Old Town Hall
Right.
does.
It's $85 a year, or whatever it is.
So,
It's 1 month's rent.
Right.
Steve, I'd
Well-
just make one more comment.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
he always has the ability to go to the ZBA and ask for a variance to increase that lot coverage.
That is true. It's not something that we can waive.
Right.
I would like to see that, the
Green space.
green space as wide as it is in front of Dunkin' Donuts if possible. It's really nice. And you've been talking about having outdoor seating, and every time I go by there, I think, oh, just a couple Adirondack chairs, that's all I need, with my coffee.
I have some outdoor seating.
I know.
I got my umbrellas the other day, too.
I know.
The
Couple-
kids finally came in.
Just need a couple more Adirondack chairs and we're all set.
That's weather.
Okay.
On the cloud, Steve.
Yes, oh, Al, do you have a comment?
I do.
Grab a mic.
I was just curious, I think it's a great idea to help them offset some of the taxes they pay on their lot. I know there's a commercial parking lot right across the street from them that seems to have well over 80% lot coverage. So just a thought, how did they get their approval?
Oh, I don't think that church is anywhere near 80%. They've got a lot of land around that parking lot that's over there.
But it is on a corner street, and if his site is impacted because of that right of way, they must have used some mechanism to get that approved that would apply to him also.
Well, when that parking lot came before the planning board, it was really only supposed to be a parking lot for the church. It was never supposed to be a parking lot for the MBTA.
Do people park there from the too?
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
yes. They get
They
annual
lease out-
permits.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe the same
Oh, yeah.
gratitude could be afforded this gentleman, a taxpayer.
Well, we looked at the zoning, and as part of a PMLD, he is allowed to have a portion of his
Say it over.
PMLD as just a parking lot.
But it would really cut into the amount of spaces he would have.
Yes, it may.
Financially, it would impact.
Right.
What does car stacking mean? Is it a surface lot or is it,
Car stacking?
Yeah.
That's, are you looking at the bottom right-hand corner?
He called- yeah.
Yeah, he didn't change it. That's just the drive-through lane, the queuing.
okay, okay.
Just for a little clarification, just like educational institutions as well as religious organizations, normally they are exempt from zoning. So that's probably under how this thing was completed. It wasn't as if the planning board didn't do their job and oversee it, so.
Oh, well, right, but I mean, it was presented to the planning board, and the planning board was told that it was for the church, so,
And it is on Sundays.
yeah,
So,
okay.
just
I
point of
wasn't-
clarification.
Pretty much
I wasn't
covered?
making an accusation. I was just.
Is that it? Did we cover almost everything that you're looking for? Anything in specific that you want us to answer?
What about shared parking under the bylaw? Would that apply, or?
Well, you'd only be sharing with Dunkin' Donuts.
I don't know that it affects I don't know if it affects site coverage. It affects number
Oh.
of parking spaces.
You're proposed by the arrows here, you're proposing to use that right away as the access and egress?
Yeah, but so it'd be a one-way in and one-way out. So it wouldn't be one way in, one.
Yeah,
it
yeah,
would
I
be two ways.
understand. But Bob, did you say that right away is, what did you say about that right away?
I've actually told him that he needs to look into who actually owns it, because it's not a public way as far as I know. So, to me, it could have been just an access driveway to the MBTA parking lot and not, and they may own it, so.
And the building behind there.
At one point, it was a driveway to that building,
It's,
and I don't know who actually owns it at this point, so.
it's shown as that green strip there, yeah? Yeah,
No, the other one.
The other one, the other side, Bob. This one, over-
That-
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
That came up when you had brought that bank project before
Yes,
the
it
board, the
did.
question, we had that caveat regarding costs.
You're butting it. It's not mentioned in your deed?
No, it's not.
Desco, I mean, they must have, that building's been there a long time. They must have had access. It's gotta be a private way. How long's that? You tell me, Bob.
I think it's been there probably 30, 35 years now.
Yeah,
Probably longer than that.
okay.
That seems pretty short
Yeah.
for that building.
Right.
Yeah, I'm probably dating myself, probably closer to 40 years.
Yeah.
There was some type of cattle crossing underneath.
Oh, yes, actually, the cow tunnel.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a cart path that goes back a long time.
There is, that cow tunnel is there, right?
No kidding, right?
You've never seen that?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Under the tracks.
Goes right over to, what's that street?
Are-
Ware Drive? Yeah.
What, did I misinterpret his shared parking question? Was the shared parking question about sharing the driveway entrance on Main Street?
Well,
Or was it about, what was,
No, about the parking lot.
What benefit are you gonna get on a shared parking basis? I don't see the value to you.
well, he is sharing the parking.
No, I realize that, but I don't see where it would help your new idea.
the
Only
reason
on
people use
weekends.
shared parking is to reduce the number of spaces that they would have to construct. That's
wanna
that's the
maximize
advantage of shared parking, but you want to maximize the parking.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, can I do this? Like, can I do a parking lot on that adjacent property? That's my main
Well,
question.
if it's part of a planned multi-lot development, it's an allowed use.
And
And it-
60,
No, it actually says, under I-4C, for planned multi-lot developments, the planning board may waive the dimensional requirements of section I-4B2 and I-4B3, and I-4B3 is where the 60% lot coverage is.
we
So
can.
the planning board can waive it, although as a condition of waiving it, it talks about the nature of the design, which assumes a building. So it may be a little difficult, but I think the planning board probably has authority to waive the 60%.
You can, design can mean site design.
The design fills, I suppose it could, the purpose of section 1, the design
It says meets
addresses
all the following standards. and there's a
architectural detail.
substantial List of,
Oh.
in order to waive
Well, the
that
architectural
dimensional
detail
requirement,
could be
there's a
the building, could
substantial
be the
list
Dunkin'
here.
Donuts.
Landscape architecture.
Because further into the schedule under section I, they specifically will break out a lot coverage for both inside the business core and outside the business core. And if that wasn't the case,
Yeah, well, what this says, the planning board can waive either. It can waive either the 80% for inside or the 60% for outside, if it makes these findings about the nature of the project, so. There's an opportunity that you might not have to go to the Board of Appeal. Yeah.
But to Andrea's point, in terms of having proper screening, and, I think most of the folks would, that I certainly, my circles, they wouldn't want to
Really.
be looking right at all these cars
No,
parked there,
it doesn't
right in
meet
the center of town.
all
I
of
don't know.
those.
Having some screening and such, I think would be
Well,
important.
the PMLD could consider the
Yeah.
existing building, for architectural detail, and you'd have to think about it, but.
I think Jeff also raised a good point, which is parking tends to be a transitional use. And, in the hopes that another use comes along that's, creates more of a community setting.
Okay,
Wait
I
a
think that
second.
we're
When
gonna
you
have
say
to move on.
transitional use,
Yes,
what do you mean?
We're starting to get behind schedule
I'm-
here.
Transitional meaning temporary.
So,
oh, yeah.
I,
but I'll put
I
it
think
this
that
way,
you've
anyone that puts in a
gotten
parking lot
an earful already.
is going to realize more money than they'll ever get
Did you,
from the
did you
investment of a
look at the
building.
section that we were just talking about, the I-4C? Oh, okay.
It's just not in the best interest of the town.
Oh, no.
So I think what you're hearing from the board is that this is probably doable. Come back with a better design plan, and
Yeah, this was an informal meeting, it wasn't.
Yeah.
sure,
So it's an allowed use, just come back with a plan and then.
then we'll pick the plan apart and,
And park the perimeter.
Park the perimeter.
After you put in your landscape border,
The perimeter moves in then.
the perimeter moves in.
Okay, let's move on to the public hearing for the zoning articles. So. Yeah. Walter, you want to give the notice?
yes. Notice is
These are gonna
hereby
be-
given in accordance with Chapter 48 of the Mass General Laws that the Norfolk Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, April 29th, 2014, at 8:30 PM at the Norfolk Town Hall, 1 Liberty Lane, Norfolk, to discuss proposed changes to the Norfolk zoning bylaws which have been submitted to the warrant for the May 13th, 2014 annual town meeting. Complete copies of the text of the amendments available for review in the Planning Board office during the hours of 9 AM to 6 PM, Monday through Thursday.
Okay, is there someone here who's going to present these articles? Okay. So, we'll start with Article 27, to see if the town will vote to amend I-4A11 of the Norfolk zoning bylaws as set forth by inserting the additional provisions shown that are underlined with the existing text not being changed, shown for informational purposes only. And the sections that are being added to I-4A11 is after the words bedrooms for a single lot, the line, or an entire PMLD. And after, except for special permit by the zoning board of appeals is the addition. So that's for zoning I-4A11.
Article 27, right?
Article 27. So, okay, if you want to give your presentation for us.
I didn't really prepare a presentation,
Well,
but I'll
you can
explain
explain
the
it.
reason for adding the PMLD. That language is used in, I think, down in the C section of town, zoning, down there, entire PMLD. By adding the entire PMLD to the language to this article, the 16 bedrooms are subject to the PMLD also. Without that language, a developer can take a lot and divide it up into a planned multi-lot development and put multiple units on each lot that when they divide it up. Do you follow me?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason for adding the PMLD, so when someone takes a lot and splits it up, they don't go over the 16 bedrooms. Do you have any questions regarding that?
What, does anyone from the board have any questions on this?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I commend you, Mr. Diamond, for getting involved, and I know you've gotten others involved, working on this, so I think that's...
Thank you.
I think that's a wonderful thing, just to see that involvement. As we go through some of these articles, I do have some concerns in that we do have some things in place that are intended to try to create a vision for what we want the town to be. We have a master plan that involves public input. We have other things as well that, we've done in recent years. We put together the video to try to convey at least one vision of what, town center might look like. We've recently hired Ray here, a planner that's going to help us hopefully continue. We've been successful over at the 115, 1A area. That area, we've seen some positive developments there. So, I am concerned about, making these types of what I consider somewhat ad hoc changes to zoning. In this case, if I take a look at it, and this would apply to inside the core as well as outside the core, in order for PMLD to be developed, there has to be 80,000 square feet of land. There has to be a significant parcel. That's almost 2 acres of land. And there seems to be, an incompatibility in my mind between, 2 acres of land and a 16-bedroom maximum threshold in terms of number of bedrooms, because on 2 acres, 16 bedrooms, you're basically telling a developer that they're going to need to, from the get-go, anticipate and expect to have to go before the ZBA and pursue a variance, because there's no way that could be economically, commercially viable. So that's the concern with approaching zoning in this way. But it's not a criticism. I think it's a good discussion to have, and it certainly caused me to go back and review some things that, we had discussed going back a couple years ago when we were taking a hard look at some of these zoning bylaws. So that's not a bad thing. But, I see that as being an issue for us to approach approach zoning in this fashion, I guess. And those concerns would apply to the other articles as well, but those are at least my introductory comments.
Can I comment back?
Any other comments from the public?
He
He
wishes
wanted
to
to
respond.
respond.
Oh, okay.
Just like to add that by adding the PMLD, it doesn't say that they can't do the 16 bedrooms. It's just subject to review by the ZBA, correct? And it's not a variance, it's a special permit, which is a little more,
Well, in terms of exceeding the number of bedrooms, that would be an action by the ZBA. Okay, that the developer would need to expect that they'll have to go before a ZBA before even.
for a
putting
special
a plan
permit or a
together.
variance.
Well, I mean, Bob could answer the question better than I could, but.
Well, it says right in the,
It's a special permit,
I believe it's for a special permit.
In this article,
Moving that, what you're moving now the PMLD review responsibility, I think, from the planning board to the ZBA. So, but separate that. That's the way I interpret that.
no, the PMLD would still be reviewed by the planning board, but in order to go more than 16 bedrooms, you would go to the ZBA, and by a special permit, they could allow for more than 16 bedrooms. That's the way I would interpret it. Because he's not changing the interpretation of what a PMLD is. He's just changing the amount of bedrooms allowed on a single lot or a PMLD in totality.
So my concern when I read the language that you wanted to add was another goal of the work that we did a couple of years ago to modify these bylaws was twofold. Was one, to try and be more in line with some of our peer communities that we look to for examples as to how they have grown and developed, that we wanted to use as models or benchmarks. So that was one thing, is we wanted to look at their language and we wanted to at least use it as a benchmark. The second goal is we wanted to start to be more precise about some of the definitions in here. And we didn't quite meet all of that. We still all admit that we have some work to do on some of these zoning articles when we refer to a lot. We haven't defined it as a square footage all the time. And so other towns that we looked at for benchmarking and for peers had a lot more precise, accurate information, where ours, still leaves a lot of wiggle room. So if we use the word entire PMLD, what I feel it goes against with those two goals we were really working very hard on a couple of years ago is a PMLD could be huge. I mean, that's the minimum square footage requirement, but it could be huge. And to put this as, an all umbrella, I think it goes backwards in the work that we were trying so hard to undo. And it puts the language right back in this vagueness, and regardless of the size, everybody is subject to this additional hurdle. So part of the goal of this is to make the rules, clear to developers and attractive to developers within rules that we want for our community. And I don't feel that this particular language as is written achieves that. So that was my other concern about leaving it so broad and encompassing as any entire PMLD would be subject to this.
Okay, thank you.
And I just come back to the question, it just seems unclear to me in terms of the responsibility for PMLD. I mean, you drafted it, so, fair enough that in your mind it's clear, but it's in my mind, it seems to be shifting that responsibility. So perhaps in other zoning articles, it might clarify, and I stand corrected if that's the case, but that's one of the things that I inferred from this language, the way it's presented here. And just, echoing Michelle's, comment, the 80,000, as Michelle said, 80,000 square foot, that's a minimum master parcel to be divided into a PMLD. And if you're starting at 16 bedrooms, you're so far from anything that's commercially viable. I just don't know that that's the right message that you want to be sending, starting in that place. And, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, when the ZBA is reviewing an application and somebody's looking for, say, 40 bedrooms across an 80,000 square foot parcel, members of that board at that point in time could say, wait a minute, we have a threshold of 16 and the applicant's looking for 80. No way, no how, and folks might forget that the number could have been 320 today. So instead of being viewed in a way that would be realistic, objective, my concern is people may overreact, thinking that 16 is a magic number, that's an appropriate number, and somebody's coming in looking for multiples of 16, it just may be a threshold of burden that a developer may not overcome, quite frankly.
My only opinion is I do feel that 16 is appropriate. I don't feel that 40 is something that a lot of people want downtown. In the B1 district, 40 bedrooms.
Well, 2 acres is a lot of land.
There isn't that many big lots downtown either.
Okay, the board will be going over these and make recommendations for
Thank
town
you.
meetings. So let's go on to Article 28.
Can I just add one more point?
Yeah.
It's awkward when a PMLD, when a full site is being reviewed by one board and one standard is being evaluated out of context by a second board. So it's hard for that second board that's looking at the density issue to understand what would be a good decision for that site if they're not looking at the whole site. So it kind of I think it puts the Board of Appeals in an awkward position. So it would make sense to me that the density would be reviewed in the context of the overall site, not to put two boards, fighting against each other and not necessarily being able to talk to each other about what they're trying to do. So that's one issue. You can respond to it. The second issue is different. I have a different reaction to this language than you guys have been expressing. I think what the authors are saying is that what they would like to see in town center is not 100% residential. That by restricting the residential doesn't necessarily mean that the entire site you could put in other uses besides residential and keep your zoning, keep your 16 lot density, 16 bedrooms per lot density, by putting in other uses. You can make a mixed-use development.
Possibly.
And I actually.
Go a little further down.
That's what I was hoping for.
Doesn't really cover what you're saying.
I know, but that's what I was hoping for. Do you want to get back to
Sorry,
the,
but
do you want to
one
get back to the
comment.
double boards?
Just the one comment from the first part of your comment where you said there are two boards deciding on a permit, I think you were trying to explain. But as it is right now, two boards decide on more than 16 bedrooms per lot, is that correct? So it has to go in front of the ZBA first and then back here for a site plan, right? So
That's
right
what
now, it is that
happened.
way. The only thing I'm adding is the PMLD. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, let's move on to Article
Hold on, Steve, can I
28.
comment on that? Thank you.
If it's
On the
quick.
PMLD, you review other things in addition to density. So that is not something that you should just be lumping in as a density issue. So again, it's planning multi-lot development. And also to a comment of Andrea, a lot of these larger lots that we talked about the next article on were chosen for that area, for the outside the business core, because the reality of putting commercial or that mixed use on those lots, when we couldn't even fill the ones downtown, was not a reality. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Article
I
28.
agreed with that.
You're planning on removing completely
Thank you.
Section I-7A1.
Yes, that's my petition, I-7A1, a special permit by the planning board. This section allows for residential dwellings in the B1 outside the business core district at a density of not less than 4 units per lot and not more than 1 unit per 5,000 square feet of land. And I believe this was passed in the year 2010. And as I read this article, it allows residential only in our downtown business core, outside the B1 district, as you call it. So we're taking our business core, which is for business, and now we're allowing just residential. And I just don't agree with that, and I think there's better use for the land downtown than high-density residential dwellings. We have land all over town that's being developed for residences, and I don't feel that we need this downtown. It'll affect the character of the downtown area. And I must comment that I have seen the video that you have talked about with the residential dwellings on 106, 108 Main Street, and also over at 25 Rockwood Road. And the reason I brought these petitions forward is I don't agree with it. I know that's something that you want and you've worked on. And I think a lot of people in town didn't understand when they voted for these articles that that was what was going to happen downtown. To take 10 acres of land and put high residential density dwellings downtown. So by taking this out for now, this I-7A1 is why I brought that forward, to take out allowing residential dwellings in a B1 business district, which we don't have a very large B1 district. To put residential downtown is not something I'm in favor of.
Steve?
Yeah.
Maybe we could ask Bob to show his diagram on exactly what we're talking about here. Because it's given the impression that every bit of our business district is being taken up by housing, which is far from the truth. As a matter of fact, the rezoning of these areas was specifically discussed as dense housing, not once, but twice when Mr. Kelly's Mr. Kelly's property was added to it.
You're going to put it up?
Which new one?
Yeah, you.
The difference
There.
between business core and not core. So,
Well, it's still all
This diagram here indicates everything in yellow is, everything in yellow is the so-called business core. Everything in green is outside the business core.
But within the B1 district.
But all yellow and green is within the B1 district.
So all these things are allowed?
Yes.
In addition to residential? This is what he's saying.
Right.
It
Jim,
is
excuse me,
not
my name is
limited
Paul
to
Kelly, and I own this
Yes.
parcel here.
that's what,
I'm just really curious if the petitioner can explain why he has eliminated 2 parcels here, this parcel, but kept this
Oh,
parcel.
we haven't gotten
which
to
is
that
family
yet. We
owned.
haven't gotten that
Save the
far yet.
question.
We're
Save
we're
the-
still on,
We'll
come into that.
I-7A1.
I guess, let me make a
Yeah.
comment, Steve.
Yes.
You know, the way I feel about the proposed amendments is that, we have a special permit process. It requires a super majority of the boards. It requires 4 or 5 members to support a project. And it gives the board broad authority in terms of things like open space, adequate parking, privacy. So my thinking is that it becomes very difficult to get so specific with the zoning that my concern is that you discourage development. We just had tonight, the gentleman for Dunkin' Donuts came here, and he's talking about putting in parking adjacent to Dunkin' Donuts. I don't think he would have been here talking about parking if he had, a bona fide opportunity to develop that property, something commercially viable. So I think, we're having some challenges, clearly, trying to build out town center. So, back to this article, if it's approved, if it's supported and approved, would eliminate the ability for what could be a beneficial entirely residential development. And I know that's different than having mixed use, which would have been the requirement prior to 2010. So my feeling is, done right, by members of the board with a supermajority thinking about privacy, open space, et cetera, we may do far better in terms of getting some development, the type of development that could support perhaps some additional commercial activity in the center of town. Maybe that proposed parking area wouldn't be a proposed parking area if we had some additional residential property, residential housing in the center of town. So these things kind of work together. And, we have boards and committees, and now we have a planner and other folks that are really trying to take various lenses to this very complicated matter and try to just do things which will move us forward carefully, smartly. And that's really what we're trying to do. So, my concern is now we take away the mixed use, now we can preclude development from occurring in the process. And I'm not sure that that's what we want either. I guess that's my concern.
And you are removing in this article is some of the controls that have been carefully placed in there, that outside the business core, that you can have a density of not less than 44 units per lot, and not more than 1 unit per 5,000 square feet. So that pretty carefully structures what the density in that area. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what happens in zoning if we just remove that. Do you know what would happen with zoning if that was just taken out of there?
It would come.
Residential only wouldn't be allowed.
It'd be back to the mixed use.
Mixed use, which is what you said, that was taking away mixed use, and I'm not intending to do that.
No, what I'm saying is I'm not sure that mixed use, we're finding clearly that there's challenges in terms of, getting development. We're not moving forward in terms of the center of town presently, at least, the way I see it. So if you take away the ability for an entirely residential development, done right, right-sized development, I think that just is going to further inhibit our ability to build out the town center, in my opinion. And the Dunkin' Donuts example tonight, I think, was very timely, because that gentleman wouldn't be here looking to construct a parking lot if he had, legitimate business opportunity there in terms of a commercial enterprise, store or bank or something like that.
Okay. Do you have a response to that one?
No, I agree. I don't agree with his opinion. I see it differently, and I don't feel that we need all that residential downtown. I think there could be other ways to go about it.
I think that we could lump the next...
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Oh, is this, Bob, yes.
Just want to mention that the master plan and all the work done with regard to conferences with the state regarding smart growth and the fact that we have transit-oriented opportunities here, that is why the zoning that we currently have was created, was to provide opportunities that would allow that kind of mutual mixed use that would support both commercial development and residential development in densities that are specifically appropriate to smart growth situations and transit-oriented development.
Thank you, Bob. Articles 29, 30, and 31 are virtually the same. I will differentiate between the three of them, that all three articles are to change the zoning map to remove certain lots from the B1 district and place them into residential districts. Article 29 wants to take a B1 parcel, map 14, block 49, lot 11, and put it into the R1 residential zone. Article 30 takes map 14, block 56 Lot 7 and put it into the R2 residential zone. Article 31 takes map 14, block 56, lot number 8, and puts it into the R2 residential zone. So all three of these articles are taking specific lots and taking them out of the B1 district and putting them back into residential districts. So,
One of the consequences of which, as you see on that map, is
Yes.
that the B1 district becomes fragmented.
Island effect.
I mean, if you remove Lot 7 and 8, now you've got 2 or 3 lots to the right of it. I think that orange lot above the railroad track is probably not in the B1 district, is it?
It is in the B1 district.
It
It was
is.
put there as part of the
School.
opportunity
Yeah,
for
yeah.
future wastewater treatment facility if it was ever needed.
Yes, understood. Okay. At any rate, my point is still valid, that it's 2 or 3 lots to the right, to the east, they're no longer adjoined to the main part of the B1 district.
okay, if you want to give your rationale.
The first article is Article 29, that affects map 14, block 49, lot 11. I think that's otherwise known as 25 Rockwood Road.
Yeah.
By the railroad tracks in the center of town. This was just passed at the annual town meeting last May 13. It was brought forward at the November meeting in 12. The special town meeting was brought forward, and the town voted against it. And I think the board here brought it forward again for the annual town meeting in May. And I watched the video, and it seemed like there was quite a loud opposition to it, and I kind of thought there should have been an account. And
There was
I
a-
want to bring that forward.
Remember, it's a two-thirds vote. Hard to get a two-thirds vote.
There was a count.
There was an account at the May one.
Yes, there was.
Excuse me, were you there yourself, Mr. Dine?
So, I want to bring this forward again for another vote within the town, because I feel there should have been a count at that meeting. And I feel that putting that back in the residential zone will maybe stop some of the high-density residential dwelling that's being proposed downtown per your video, which I don't agree with.
Do you want, just go down the list, you just go, do the next two articles at the same time.
Would you like me to comment on this rather
Well,
than?
let's just do them all at the same
Yeah,
time.
I'd like to comment too, at some point.
Article 30 and 31 address 2 lots of land where there already is proposed high residential density on those 2 lots, and so my petition was bringing them forward to bring them back to residential where I feel that wouldn't be allowed.
Okay, do we have any comments on these?
If I may.
Go right ahead.
The articles that would remove lots 7 and 8 and place them back in residential zones, interestingly enough, do not remove the next adjacent lot to the west of that, nor the one below Lot 7 that's adjacent to that, which I think is the Finland property. And so that leaves the Diamond property and the Finland property within the B1 district, subject to the ability to build out and put high-density residential property on those 2 lots in the future, should the owners choose to do so. So it's interesting that this Lot 7 and 8 would be removed from that ability, but those other 2 lots would not be removed from that ability. I just find that fascinating.
Well, if my other articles pass, they wouldn't be able to do high residential dwelling on those properties if, what is it, Article 29? Passes. And, those 2 property owners aren't proposing that type of development. Or do they plan to?
Mr. Chairman?
Well, I just want to make one comment, that when I look at it, I look at it and think that it looks like spot zoning.
It's actually
So
called
that
legally
would be
reverse spot
something
zoning.
that would be looked at carefully by the Attorney General's office before it would be accepted.
Questionable legally. It's questionably, it's targeted zoning changes, which is legally, we'd be under a lot of scrutiny.
And how about when lot 25 Rockwood Road was
Number
spot
11.
changed? Is that wasn't illegal?
Well-
When it was
Well,
cha-
That's not spot changed, it's contiguous and adjacent to.
It's an expansion.
To similarly zoned. Yeah, you're like islanding, you're specifically, and I think the elephant on the table is, we know you've been in objection to the 106, 108 Main Street development, and so I understand your reasons behind wanting to make these specific changes, but you have to be really careful, because that's one thing for you to come as an abutter and voice those concerns, and you have every right, but the owner also has every right to develop the land within the way that the property is currently zoned. So going this particular route sort of discredits some of your other actions because it makes it so targeted. And I understand your concerns, and I understand that you don't necessarily agree with the vision of the town. And so I think some of those articles are right. I think, perhaps even removing this one might give some credit to your others because it just feels so targeted. It just makes it feel like I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Just
Anybody else have
just a comment regarding Lot 11, so the 25 Rockwood Road. The concerns that were raised initially, at least my recollection, were related to Boardman Street in terms of the residential property and the homes on Boardman Street. And the board, in conversation with Gino Carlucci, Board of Selectmen, we really tried to understand what protections were in place for the residents on Rockwood Road. Did I say?
You said Boardman.
Boardman, sorry, on Boardman. And, some of the things that we were able to determine is that there were protections. Now, there were protections in that there's a 30-foot wide green belt that has to be provided. So some protection there. It would disallow any driveway, vehicle circulation area, or other vehicle access way within 50 feet of any residential parcel without a special permit of the ZBA. And also that the subject parcel, Lot 11, access to the parcel via any parcel within the R1 district would not be allowed. So you couldn't access, you would not be allowed to access that property from the residential district. So, we did our best to convey those details to the residents of the town at town meeting, and I think we allayed a fair amount of concern that some of the abutters, particularly those on Boardman, had.
Right.
And as a result, the article ultimately did get supported to rezone Lot 11 from residential to B1 outside the core. So, and it's also along the train tracks, and so I think, it fits the profile of something that probably should be part of that B1 or greater B1 district. So I think there's reasons for why those actions were taken a few years ago, and you understand your concerns. I mean, you've got maybe a different vision in terms of what you like the town center to look like, but I just think it's important that folks realize that a lot of time has been spent trying to really understand these zoning bylaws and try to make improvements. We still have a lot of improvements to make, and Ray's going to help us do that. I mean, Michelle brought up the fact that we have, some things that aren't very easy to grasp when you're dealing with, how many units per lot, how many units per acre. We have, different metrics, which I think we've got to try to standardize them to make it as straightforward as possible. But I don't know that it's ever going to be straightforward to people unless they're really doing it all the time. I think zoning by its very nature is tricky. So, those are my comments. It was studied. There's a reason why that change was made, and I really don't think it'd be the proper thing to
there is one more thing that you had left out of that, because there was, one of the major concerns on parcel 11 was that there appears to be a right-of-way that goes in off of Boardman Street. And people were assuming that it was going to connect. And I think that once that connection went away, because it's not really a right-of-way that goes in there. So once that went away, it was more acceptable to people to have that included in the B1 district. Is there any other comment from anybody here? Peter, yes.
Steve Peter Chipman, I'm representing my family who owns Lot 8 that's trying to be rezoned by the Diamond family. And one thing I want to point out, this thing's been a B1 parcel for quite a long time. And they actually added the town hall to the B1 district even after that to further expand the opportunity. In a nutshell, this is classic hopscotch or reverse spot zoning, written by none other than Mark Bobrowski of J. Talaman fame in his Mass Handbook on zoning, okay? And if you want to look it up, feel free. You can go right online. Secondly, the reason why zoning shouldn't be done by petition is the unintended consequences. So, good luck, rezone parcel 8, and then, when the town wants to hold aside Old Town Hall, and I insist on the 30-foot buffer on the Old Town Hall parking lot, butting up to the river that's there now, the wetlands behind it, you might as well just totally devalue the Old Town Hall site right now. Secondly, next to the Anderson property, the Finland property and Finley Rafferty, Elena Rafferty, Mike Finland, okay, spoke with them. They have a pond in front, they have wetlands on the right side. You put up a buffer by turning that into residential, that is further squeezing and squeezing down what they can actually do in there. This is not something to be dreamed up on a kitchen table. I know, all of us have been involved in writing, sitting through zoning bylaw study committees, understanding ramifications. My God, we still have a screwed up earth removal thing, and we dread to bring it up years later, even to touch it. This isn't something you do in a vacuum. That's my point.
Anybody else? Arthur? Yeah? I mean, Walter?
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, Paul Kelly, I just
go ahead,
just
Mr.
to
Kelley.
Yep.
extrapolate what Peter was saying. I mean, I sat through 4 years of meetings, and I was asked to have my property included so that we could, develop some incentives through the state for infrastructure. And, it sits right on the railing. If you're looking for a smart growth, a transit-oriented development, that's the place to go, this parcel right here. The other thing is, we don't have, we don't have a sewer system, so you're limited to the units you can put on there anyway. So, but I think it's just unfortunate that after 4 years that, and, with a petition with 10 signatures, we're trying to change zoning after 4 years of working hard and a lot of input from a lot of people, so.
Walter?
Yeah, Mr. Diamond, you've used a citizen's petition to bring these articles forward, and I recognize that and support it, actually, because I've used the same petition vehicle myself to get an article on the warrant a few years ago, dealing with the political signs. And it's a great way for the citizens to be able to bring forward an article. I don't happen to agree with what you're trying to do, but I do support your right to do it. I just hope personally that these articles do not pass.
Okay, I think, Bob, we're on to Article 36. 36?
35.
Oh, 35, is there a 35? Oh, there it is, yeah, oh, okay.
Betsy,
Oh,
is
that-
there
that's-
a
that's
warrant
Bob's
with
also,
all the
right?
numbers on them now? Well, we know these numbers.
This is all I've
Okay.
gotten.
To see if the town will vote to amend Section J, C1 District, routes 1A, 115, and Section B definitions of the Norfolk zoning bylaws by changing subsection J3 district boundaries and adding a new definition for medical marijuana treatment. That's, do you have to have a discussion about just adding a definition?
Basically, what's involved here was, we went through this last year, and this language was all created, and then they decided, the town, that we should go through a moratorium. What we're now trying to do is bring back the article that was...
Microphone, please.
Bring back the article as it was presented last year, which was to deal with the fact that the medical marijuana treatment facility program is now law and is allowed to happen, and the moratorium has ended, and for that reason, we should bring back the zoning that we created last year and designate a location along with the adult business district that we have in the C1C district, which is just up on 115 Pond Street from 1A, and that's what this map is. And then in addition to that, we created in the second article that you were discussing, eliminating the moratorium language and structuring the definition to match what the state has now.
Well, that's number
approved.
36.
Right.
We're just doing 35 right now, which is the overlay district and the definition.
And the definition of medical marijuana treatment facility.
So so if you want to just point out where the...
Okay, this is 115 as it runs from the center of town towards Foxborough. This is 1A with Walpole in this direction and coming down here into Rentham. We have 3 sub-districts, A, B, C, and D. C is on this side going towards town off of the Pond Street, Route 115, and Sharon Drive, and we had already created a decade ago an adult business district.
So that's not Sharon Drive, that's...
Sherwood.
Sherwood, I'm sorry, Sherwood, misread it. You're right. So we're simply asking that a second use be allowed in the same limited location.
A second overlay district.
Second overlay district.
Is it in the entire C1C, or is it?
It's in the area
only
hatched
in-
here, which is located there, which is exactly how it was laid out for the adult business district, overlay district. So this language was all created last year, went to moratorium, and now we're trying to bring it back to reality with the fact that the marijuana bylaws are now in effect.
Yeah.
Oh, now, Al, you want to mention something? What, you want to build something there? Is that what it is?
You know some adults?
Quite Leary, Sin City.
My wife doesn't particularly care for it. I own 77 Pond Street. Is it close to there?
77 is off on the other side of 115, isn't it?
Is that Luca Plaza?
Yeah.
That's here.
Yeah, yeah.
And what can you do on this new overlay?
Adult business has always been allowed, and now we're saying medical marijuana would also be allowed.
So it'll butt up to my property?
It always has, as an adult business overlay district.
No, I'm talking about the medical
And the
marijuana.
medical marijuana would occupy the same location.
Can you explain why this line kind of goes in the back, or is that just a printing error?
It's just a printing error.
Okay, that's
Would
fine.
you include my parcel in the medical marijuana?
Do you want it?
Why not? I mean, if I'm gonna have to live to it beside me, why wouldn't I want it on my parcel?
Well, if you want to bring it up at the next town meeting, these are already the articles as
Yeah,
they
we
exist.
can't change the articles as they exist now.
Walter, did you have something that you wanted to add to this?
It would
Yeah, but I
it'd be
forgot.
considered
It'll come back-
expanding the
It'll come back to
article.
me, Steve.
Did you have anything?
Article 36.
Oh, okay. Oh, we'll you
Oh,
can.
I know what it was. We took this article and the next one, on the zoning bylaw study committee, to the selectmen and recommended that they support them because the moratorium ends in June. And if we wait until a fall town meeting, we're kind of vulnerable as a town between the expiration of the moratorium and enacting some of these zoning bylaws in the fall. So they supported putting them back into the warrant at that point, and that's why they appear here.
Okay, any other comments? We'll move on to number 36. So now we can go into the discussion of the purpose and everything on the the marijuana treatment centers. And it's,
Oh, is this,
it's a fairly long one here.
So it talks about the moratorium.
Let's see if it's shorter on the.
Well, most of it's crossed out.
It's just
Oh,
removing
to
any
see if the
reference to
town
the
will
moratorium.
vote to amend section F, general regulations of the Norfolk zoning bylaw by revising subsection F14 or take any other action relative thereto. So that's what we're talking about right here.
Steve, just like to make a comment on this. Talking to Jack Hathaway this afternoon, he was saying that town council is actually asking us to IP this right now because the moratorium doesn't, ends in June and the town meeting's on May 13th. And there's other language that they want to add to this later on.
Would we be better off passing this and then amending it in the fall town meeting? Or is it better off just having something to cover it?
It was his recommendation to IP it and deal with it in the fall.
Both of them articles or just this one?
I believe just this one. It could be both, though.
Because I mean, if it's both, I'm a little less comfortable because at least with Article 35, we've defined if it's going to go anywhere, we've defined where it's going to go. So we've reduced our risk
Right.
significantly.
I don't see this downside to it, and the reality of it is this. Medical marijuana licenses right now are more sought after than casino licenses, okay? No one's getting one for the town of Norfolk
No.
in 6 months. I really don't see us exposed.
Well, the application's already in.
Right. But if for some reason they're actually reconsidering many of the ones from like, Delhunt and things like that, they're not passing the scrutiny right now. Some of them might actually get rebid.
So, how do you guys feel about,
But are they coming to
putting
Norfolk?
off
No way.
36 and just keeping 35?
I don't, I'd prefer that they both go forward and be passed, but I want to hear the argument put forward by the selectmen and the town council as to why we should do it, but in the absence of that, I'd vote to support them.
I mean, this is where we're ultimately gonna put it.
Right.
Absolutely.
And if you look at the language that's left, if you could just describe, I mean, as someone
Right.
said, most of this is struck out, but it looks like what's left is we should do what the state regulations say.
Yes.
That's what's left.
Right.
That's what's left, and that's how it was created.
We got to do that anyways, so what's the reason for not, so why not?
Just relaying the message.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
fine, and, you know,
Is there any reason why we can't just mop it up in the fall? You know,
Yeah.
pass it now and amend it later?
Yeah, because that's right. All it does say is that we follow
Gotta
the
f-
regulations of the Department of
state.
Public Health.
I
Okay.
mean, Bob and
Got it.
Walter have brought this multiple times to us already.
Right. And then whatever additional changes they might be thinking about right now could be, I don't know what that means, additional changes, but aside from doing what the law asks us to do, I don't know how much more we'd want to do, to tell you the truth.
I'm not in disagreement with
Here.
you. I'm just expressing what town council had said.
We'll be voting on our recommendations next week.
Next week, yeah, prior to the meeting, right.
I'm with you. I'd prefer to see them both go forward. There's no reason not to.
Yeah, so,
We've had too many times that we've let things, slide for another town meeting and it just.
so we are meeting next week, and we will be making our decision on these zoning articles and what our recommendations for town meeting would be. We'll be deciding that next week. If the Board of Selectmen wants to let us know why it would be advisable to, to IP 35 and 36, or just 36, because 36 is pretty simple. They could just drop us a simple memo that explains exactly why it is that they're asking to delay it.
Yeah, I really need to know what the downside is.
Yeah, we
But
can't
if
see what the
it's not simple,
downside
then I'd
is.
love to know what the issues are.
Right.
Because if there's something more complicated here than what we're seeing, maybe we're not seeing everything that there is to these articles.
Yeah. All right, looks like we're
I
done.
had a hard time seeing the forest.
You want a motion to close?
The
letters.
Public hearing?
strike
The
out.
public hearing? Yeah.
I'll make a motion to close the zoning, what are we calling this? Town meeting zoning articles, public hearing.
All those in favor?
If you're
Wait a second, yeah,
going
maybe-
to
maybe somebody else.
receive input from...
I'm sorry?
If you're going to receive input from the Board of Selectmen or others regarding these articles, you shouldn't close the hearing for Articles 35 and 36. If you close the hearing, you're not supposed to take additional testimony.
Oh, that is true, because we're just asking for a memo, so.
Yeah, so you can close the other
Want to amend your
articles.
decision to, your motion to.
Well, you can just close it next week.
Somebody else want to make a
Why
motion?
don't you continue it?
You shouldn't move because you're
What's that?
recused
Yeah,
yourself.
well, okay, that's right, the earlier articles.
Yeah.
Why doesn't somebody motion to
I'm
continue
gonna-
it then?
Well, do we want to continue the whole hearing or just the hearing for 35 and 36?
Just 35 and 36.
I move to close the public hearing for Articles 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31. Thank you. For zoning bylaw articles. And keep Articles 35 and 36 open to our next meeting, which is May 6th at what time?
7:30, right?
No,
Well-
8 o'clock after
We
the
already have an
election,
eight.
where we've got MacArthur Ave at 8,
We can go 8.
106. And
But
one-
those
We could
can't,
do- we
those
could
can't
do
happen
these
though,
at-
because you didn't advertise, right? I thought you couldn't, you didn't advertise for
Those
106,
are when the
108.
continued public hearings for the site plan review have been continued to.
Oh, so we have to, but they're just going to be continued. I thought you didn't advertise in time.
For the
They will
plan
be
multi-lot special permit hearings.
I can't speak
Well, we're
for
meeting at
108.
7:30, right?
No, we're meeting at 8 o'clock.
Oh.
But can we
Late meeting, huh?
squeeze it?
It's
in?
because of the election.
Oh, okay.
I know they have
Do
their
it at
traffic
8:16?
study, guys.
8:05.
When's your next lot?
Just do it at
Yeah, we
8:05.
can do it at 8:05.
All right. So, as I just said, continue the hearing on 35, 36 to May 6th at 8:05 PM.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I guess Chris Lapointe isn't here, huh?
No, no. That warrant article is actually, there's actually some ongoing discussions with the landowner and need to settle before they, before we come forward and discuss it.
All right. Al, you're
But it-
up.
But it will be on the warrant for the meeting itself?
I think it's already on the town meeting warrant.
It's on the warrant.
Yeah. So what, purchase details? Okay.
Hi.
You had a question about Pondville Plaza.
I am. It's a general question based on the last approval of the meeting. I'm under the understanding that the approval of my drainage now has been made available to the Board of Health through an agreement with Mr. Houston and the chairman. So I guess my question is, was that agreement the chairman of the planning board or a different chairman?
We voted to accept the new plan for the, was it new
And the
plan?
drainage report,
Yeah,
both.
and the drainage report for Pondville Plaza. That's what we.
We've already
vo-
accepted
We
it.
accepted it.
So in a Board of Health meeting, and I know you guys can't speak to a Board of Health meeting, on the video, Mr. Houston spoke that he made an arrangement with the chairman to take the drainage approval away from the planning board and give it to the Board of Health. So that didn't happen through you, Steve?
No.
Nope.
No, we didn't have a conversation about
Could I
that.
ask?
Was that a conversation you had with the chairman of the Board of Health?
The statement is not factual. The
Oh.
Board of Health has jurisdiction over the drainage on Podville Plaza, but it's not affecting the actions of the planning board with
Right.
regard to drainage or anything else regarding the property.
Well, what statement isn't fact?
The drainage isn't being taken away from the planning board, but the Board of Health does have jurisdiction of the drainage.
What
We've
chairman-
accepted what was given. We've accepted the new plans and new report. We've accepted them already.
In the history of my projects, it's always been the planning board that has, I've presented the drainage to, and it was approved, and it's never been approved by the the Board of Health. So, I'm just trying to
Right,
figure out the agreement and who the
All
agreement
right,
was
I can
with.
speak to this. I can speak to this. A few years back, maybe 4 years ago, actually, we harmonized the regulations between the Board of Health and the Planning Board, and the...
Concom. All three
Yeah,
of
it
them?
might be, but you
All
know,
three
where
of
I
them.
was, more heavily involved was with the planning board and the Board of Health. And what we tried to do is harmonize the regulations and utilize the same resources where possible to save money for the town, save money for developers, basically. I mean, try to eliminate redundancy. And the way it was structured is that the Board of Health, they always, in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, have the right, the authority to review drainage. I'm not talking about septic, I'm just talking about drainage. Anything related to the drainage, boards of health in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts have the right to review, and it's been proven through case law. Now, on many, and in fact, probably most projects, the Board of Health probably just defers to the planning board. However, if at any time a Board of Health feels that there's any special circumstances, it is certainly within their purview where they can review drainage. And it's been proven out in case law, and it's, I researched it when I was trying to see if we could harmonize and get some streamlined approach between the two boards. So those are the facts. In terms of how that affects your project, I have no idea. I have no idea what actions the Board of Health, what conversations have taken place. I'm not familiar with that.
Just so you understand, the only thing we're looking for on Pondville Plaza is the few relatively minor changes to that drainage study. That's the only issue.
Well, Tom, they're the same points that you tried to propose to the planning board.
They are.
That Steve specifically asked you not to go backwards on things that we already approved, and you're taking a second bite of the apple. And I don't know I'm here tonight to find out who the agreement was with, because I wasn't invited to the Board of Health meeting. It wasn't posted. There's violations of open meeting law here. My due process has been violated. You're holding up my project on this drainage. I can't do the septic design until the drainage is approved. I thought I got past this issue. It's stopping the development of this project. I don't really know what your motive is, but, you've put me at my wit's end, and I don't know what to do.
Well, Al, why don't you call me and we can talk about it? The only thing we're looking for is the relatively minor changes to that drainage report.
So you were instructed by this board not to go backwards, but you get to go backwards with the Board of Health.
In his defense, he sits on two separate boards, and, whatever was decided I don't know about the agenda and the notification and all that, but, he has to go by whatever agreements and discussions were made in that meeting by that board.
This is a fairness issue. He's singling out me, he's singling out my project. The Board of Health doesn't review any other drainage. We had a miserable time getting this approved, and I just don't know what the obstacle with Mr. Houston is at this point.
There's no obstacle, Al, except we're looking for the responses to the drainage report that we had put out months ago. And they're pretty minor in nature.
How about this? In Steve's absence, I'm vice chair, this is the planning board. We have accepted everything and approved and signed and delivered to you everything you need. Your drainage, as far as this board is concerned, is fine. Al, you asked a question of Steve because you asked about a chairman being referenced. Are you satisfied that Steve didn't have anything to do with that?
I am.
Okay, so obviously, rather than us get into something that we finally got through after all this time, obviously, you're not a newcomer to this game. You know where to go next. And I really don't want to relive the drainage discussion here because we've already approved it. We're on the record of approving it. We didn't have a problem with it. I don't know what else to say.
There really is nothing else to say. I mean, you just got to work it out with the Board of Health. And Tom is their agent, and if in fact, they feel that those are legitimate concerns, and quite frankly, I felt that some of them, were worth discussing, and unfortunately, meeting didn't take place, and, we decided nevertheless as a board that we would move ahead. But that doesn't prevent the Board of Health from, deciding as a board that they really do want to work through those those questions.
So if they did in fact decide as a board to do that, that's something you need to contact, who's the current chair?
Tom Gilbert.
Want to keep the peace between the two boards. It's worked well between the two boards, and they definitely have the authority to review drainage.
You know, the authority really wasn't, you know, what I was talking about is the spirit of the agreement, what was done for, what I did additionally. That drainage report was an extra benefit to the town. I've already had to sign my laws. We had an agreement, a legal agreement with the town that they withdrew the lawsuit. They agreed to accept the engineering.
We're there.
I agreed to stop it all.
We're there.
And it just
Yeah, we
doesn't
accepted
seem-
all that.
No, it just doesn't seem.
We've
to
all
end.
we've formally accepted all of it. And so,
But the agreement was the engineering. It wasn't specific to the board.
Go backwards, please.
I guess, you know, one question to Tom is, you know, if you basically got direction from us as a board, obviously you brought it forward to the Board of Health as a concern.
Yes, yeah.
That's.
Yeah, it's his job to do that.
He brought the same concerns, they were consistent, they were, you know, it's not like he said something different to them than he did to us, he's just being consistent and.
Except
I would
that 4 and 5 years ago, we went through painstaking process of trying to coordinate all this within the planning board for all three, because applicants used to get ping-ponged around, and that's exactly the reason why, you know, at the time, all the boards involved agreed to centralize it with the planning board, because they felt that we could handle it.
I know, but this was such a strange project.
It was.
Because of the irregularities, we've already been through it. It just didn't fit the profile. And there were outstanding questions in terms of a drainage report that probably should have been discussed in a meeting. A meeting didn't take place, we decided, let's just move on. But the Board of Health has every right.
I just don't want to see
So,
retraction of the process, because the ping-ponging that went along when, I mean, I sat through it at 10 years on the Board of Health and the last 6 years here, and where we are today is a hell of a lot better than when, I mean, people couldn't even schedule meetings on the next board because they didn't know how that other board was going to react to drainage.
I think that you're cycling off point.
No, I'm not. I am directly on point,
No, but
Andrea.
the-
Please
the
don't
fact
introduce,
is that-
no, interrupt me on this. This is something that we worked hard to undo, was the stupidity of the past.
You can't take
well,
away the
let's not
state
drift.
authority that the Board of
Let's stick
Health
with
has.
Al's.
I'm not telling them to take away. I'm
They
I'm
haven't.
talking about the idea that we had cooperating boards to centralize it in one central review
and the
area.
Board of Health has done nothing to demonstrate that they've been anything but responsible,
I
cooperative.
haven't seen the Board of
I
Health
mean,
on it,
this is
so I don't know.
one project, it's been.
It's the only
3 or
time
4
it's come up.
years.
It's the only time
And
it's
I'm
come
not
up.
surprised it came up, quite frankly. I'm not surprised. I mean, it wasn't an ideal situation that there were comments that weren't thoroughly reviewed and discussed, so.
But-
Board of Health-
but-
No,
Yeah.
no, I don't,
You're wrong
it's,
about
go
it.
to the board, yeah, no, I'm not wrong about it,
I
Al.
know the knowledge, and Tom and Rick Merrickin had that meeting you say didn't take place. And there's a disagreement. Mr. Merrickin said Tom is asking for things that were previously approved. You call it a non-meeting. The meeting was there. There's a disagreement. Steve instructed him not to go backwards.
I know what was said, Al.
I know what I paid for.
I know what
I
was said.
paid for that meeting.
I know what was said. The meeting didn't take place, okay, and it was understood that if there was anything that the board that was new, that in fact, it wouldn't be something that you would be held accountable for, but anything that was consistent with a drainage report, which is why we did it, you know, do a drainage report, and that leads to questions and comments, that is legitimate for discussion, and unfortunately, the meeting didn't take place. I was disappointed. I was very disappointed.
The meeting
I was
took place
upset
on the
at
phone.
last meeting.
The meeting took place on the phone, and there's a disagreement between Mr. Merrickin and Mr. Houston. So Tom took his ball and went to the Board of Health, because he didn't get his way at the planning board. It's that simple.
All right, all right.
issue is-
We've already advised
We're done with
that
this.
we're done with this project. You have to deal with the Board of Health because it's their issue, not ours.
I just
We've
wanted
already
clarification
signed off
if it
on
came from you.
everything.
That's all I was looking
Yeah.
for today.
And the answer is no.
Thank you.
Deep breath.
All right, we're meeting next week. How much of this stuff under new old business do we absolutely have to get done tonight?
T-Mobile, I do not have a draft decision for you.
Okay?
You should review the Essex Street as-built, but Tom did provide comment letter.
Yeah, there are things with the as-built plan, but the nature of the subdivision improvements, they're in excellent shape. They're well-constructed, they're well-maintained. I don't think there's an issue. There's a few bounds and things that have to be said, but fundamentally, it's very good construction. I think it can go ahead.
So, should we sign the as-bills?
Is this on the town meeting warrant for acceptance?
Yes.
Okay. So they need it,
Yes.
yeah.
Do we have those?
I do not have
Or is the Board of
I
Selectmen
don't
the
have the
ones that sign?
Mylars.
When it comes to these street acceptances, those are signed by the Board of Selectmen, right? Those aren't signed by us, are they?
I can't remember.
I don't recall having
There's a plan right
I
here.
think they're, that we review it all.
Make a
but-
recommendation.
Yeah.
I think that's,
Looks like it's signed by both.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
I don't know, in Tom's review, there are some
Yeah, there are
departures and some inconsistencies, and I'm not comfortable recommending you sign an as-built until the as-built reflects the as-built. That's the whole point of it. Right. So I would not support, endorsing the signature until they're minor issues, but
I
they
don't
should
have a
be
Mylar
addressed.
for you
Yeah,
to
I think
sign
I think
anyway.
they're drafting issues fundamentally.
Yeah.
So they have to be sent back with PSC's comments?
Paul's already received them.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I've chased
Who
these
did it?
as-built enough
That's-
times, once you sign it, you're
Sorry.
never gonna.
Who did
Yeah.
this?
Landmark.
Oh, Paul Cutler?
So that's Essex Street. Norfolk I
I
didn't
love
even get
Paul,
up
but
there
he's
to look
a
at
little
the
slow.
flagpole.
I don't know if he'll make it in
myself,
time for
did
town
you?
meeting.
Jeez.
He's a nice guy.
How about you guys?
Tell him it's on the
Did you
warrant.
guys get up to the flagpole?
Yes, I did
You
today.
did? Oh, okay.
I can tell you what it looks like. They've done a lot of work up there. They put the shroud back on, the flag is there, the antennas are inside the shroud, the fence is in great shape, the signs are posted, all the grading has taken place, the walkway is in place with the special drains that we asked for. So it's essentially done except for the landscaping,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
the bushes and whatnot.
that's what I saw 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ray, it
any
actually
idea
looks
if they-
better than what we.
Do we have any idea if they're planning on?
I know you didn't think it didn't look that good, but once the landscaping comes in.
Yeah, I mean, everything's done, there's loam on all the sides, I mean, it looks pretty good except for the bushes, there's no bushes there yet.
Right.
I think maybe we can just ask them, what their plan is as far as the completion of work.
Yeah, they haven't-
Including the timetable.
Yeah, do you want to draft a little letter to them?
I couldn't tell
Sure,
whether
fine.
they seeded it
To
or
get an
not.
update?
Yeah, to get an update on when the landscaping will be finished there, because that's all that's left.
I mean, they should be putting the bushes in now.
Really?
I think so too, there's prime time for it right now.
Of course,
Yeah.
right.
240 Dedham Street site plan and special permit decision.
That's you guys. Is that anything happening with that?
Is there anything on there?
We reviewed the as-built.
I saw
plan.
that.
There are a lot of issues.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Yeah, it
issues?
was pretty comprehensive, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I read that this afternoon, yeah, a lot of stuff
I
there.
see that's,
Did we just get that?
Yeah, it came in today on email.
yeah, I saw it on email.
Did
Must have
he
come in later in the
Did
day.
he schedule a site meeting with you? No?
No. But we just did the
Well, it
memo,
came
so.
today, yesterday, came in recently.
I can't remember.
Schedule the next meeting.
I know I saw
Done.
it.
Sign vouchers. Did you have anyone sign vouchers?
Here they come.
Anyone have anything to add?
The only thing I have is Dunkin' Donuts
It's got a
modification
punch
Mylar.
list.
Oh,
There's a small punch list of things that need to
Dunkin'
be
Donuts.
taken care
Oh,
of.
the drive-through,
And
right.
they're working them through right now, so it'll be shortly.
doesn't look like acres of parking over there. I drove by it on Easter Sunday.
No, it's a lot more than you,
It's,
than we do.
Where's that?
It's actually, I personally think.
Gum's Farm.
Yeah, Gumps Farm.
I saw someone must have moved the barrel. They actually had a minivan in there using the place one day.
Oh, really?
The cops put the barrels back.
Yeah.
Someone was squeezed by though.
You need it, check it out.
Looks great.
Wait for the tree growth to go in a little bit. It's a little exposed.
So I thought the May 8th was going to be kept to a single agenda item.
Was
Why
it?
did I think that? I didn't think it was gonna be a May 6th, the election meeting. I thought it was gonna be a really short and sweet, get in and out kind of meeting.
It will be, but we have to make our recommendations for town meeting, so that, did you want to do them today?
No, I was just wondering if MacArthur Boulevard and 106 and 108 are gonna be long discussions. So I start to get tired.
Yeah. Yeah, tomorrow's an early day for me, too.
Every day's an early day for me.
So we are starting at 8, that
That's
is
it, that's
accurate,
the
right?
problem. Yes, what I'm thinking is
He
2 hours,
he
you're done by
doesn't-
10.
He doesn't
Thank you.
need to sign. They've got enough.
No, they're gonna.
See, 'cause I'm in your seat now, so usually I'm at the end and I don't have to sign.
And you won't sign anything.
I just took your job. I signed it as Peter Chip.
Are we done?
That's
No,
fine.
you didn't sign,
Why
did
not?
you?
My wife does.
Anyone have a motion to adjourn?
That's it?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Awesome.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you.